Mike Missanelli. He will be along shortly. This is Amy Fadul with you for the next 2 hours as my seat. I love that. I was sitting in Andrew Salciunas' seat, which was too big, and then now my seat is too low, but I will fix it later. Mike Missanelli and Bill Colarulo will be with you at noon. They're doing a corporate meeting, very important, but I am with you for the next 2 hours alongside my producer, Ray Dunn. Ray, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Amy. How are you?
Happy Thursday. I do have to tell you something. I was driving my son back from a training last night, and he was excited that I was going to be on radio, even though he's at school, and he was asking if you were going to be here or if you were on vacation.
Oh, come on.
I could not believe it. I almost pulled the car over and I said, what are you talking about? How do you know he's been on vacation? He said, didn't he go to Aruba? I said, that was a really long time ago. I felt for you. The fact that you caught a stray from my 9-year-old son was
That's tough. That's brutal. That's a tough audience for me.
It was tough.
I do appreciate his memory, though.
It was pretty good.
Aruba was great. You can let him know. It was wonderful. I did enjoy it back in June.
Back months ago. You've had like 5 vacations since then, by the way.
Oh, come on.
So, but yes, we're going to be talking plenty of Eagles. We have Andrew DiCecco coming on at 11:30. Ray is with us. He is not on vacation, thankfully. He is here with us for the next 4 hours. I'm with you for the next 2. But we got to get into it. I know the morning show addressed quite a bit of it as well. We're going to have some sound bites. We're going to play you from Tim McManus, who is really good on some of the topics we want to cover, and, of course, Nick Sirianni, who doubled down on a couple different things yesterday. The coordinators are speaking today. Around 1:20 is when they're scheduled to speak. I know we will bring you those comments as well. So plenty to clean up. Sometimes it's a good thing. I was talking with Barrett Brooks yesterday, and I was asking, is it a good thing to have a short week, or what was considered a short week after the Monday Night Football game, in order to get back on the field, on the practice field, move forward after a loss like that? And yes and no. You have to flush it. I know that's something Jalen Hurts says all the time. You got to flush it. But you really do, in a case like this, you have to try to move forward, because the Saints are not a team to be trifled with. That first game against the Panthers, I throw that out. I know they've been averaging 45.5 points, but one of those is against the Panthers, and everybody should average 45 points against the Panthers. But the game against the Cowboys, I think, gave a lot of people pause. Maybe the Saints aren't, a complete, disaster of a defense down there, because they were able to really get after Dak Prescott. And so I think that you look at what the Falcons were able to do against the Eagles offensively, and then what the Eagles defense, lack thereof, was able to do against this team. You're thinking, like, this is not good, because they should have been able to get a lot more pressure on Kirk Cousins. And can they do that against Derek Carr, who's been fantastic for the first 2 weeks of the season? He's got nearly a perfect passer rating. It's like over 142, like 142 point something. But so my first topic, I guess, for this first little bit is going to be what is more concerning on the defense. There's plenty of issues to go around, and we knew this, right? We knew this going in, that there was going to be issues on the defense. Vic Fangio comes in. He's the architect of the defense they've been trying to run for a number of years, that a lot of teams run across the league. But, he's only going to have so many things he can do with the weapons that he has and the staff that he has as far as the personnel. So is a bigger concern the no pass rush? I'm not going to put lack of. There is zero pass rush. It is absolutely zero. There's no pass rush to be had. Or is it the terrible run defense? Because both are a problem. The answer is yes, but we're going to try to focus on one. And it was funny when Ray, you texted me last night. You said, "What is your bigger concern?" And to me, it was the lack of pass rush, because I think that really carries on through everything else. That puts everybody else at a disadvantage as far as the defense go. Starting with the linebackers on back, when there is no lack of a pass rush, everything else is kind of like a domino effect. The run defense is poor. I think that you've seen that. You worry about that going forward. Certainly this week with Alvin Kamara and how he's been able to absolutely carve up both defenses that he's faced so far. Granted, one of them is the Panthers, but in the Cowboys, I think, are a bit of a mess too. But still, he is a formidable back. He looked like he turned the clock back. So I went with the pass rush, and I'll go into my reasons why. But one of them is that there's no one that's stepping to the forefront. We all know what Bryce Huff has been brought here to do, what they paid him to do. He's not that guy, and he has not been that guy, and it's disappointing. He can't even get on the field half the time. He took 32 snaps. That was 52% of the defensive snaps, and you're thinking, okay, should have been able to make a little bit of noise out there on the stat sheet. Britton Covey had a tackle. Bryce Huff did not. Britton Covey obviously is on offense. So to me, that was the first glaring thing. And I don't mean to just completely pile on Bryce Huff, though I think that it warrants quite a bit of piling on. It's everybody. It's across the board. And I'm not a big person for bringing up numbers, but sometimes numbers really do help tell the story. There's been now 6 straight games, going back to last season. The Eagles' edge rushers, defensive ends, edges, don't have a sack. That's 6 straight. The last one, it was week 14, Dallas, Hassan Reddick. He's the one. He got home against Dak Prescott. So to me, I think that's a little bit more troubling than the run defense. Ray, if you had to pick of the run defense versus pass rush, what's a bigger concern? They're both concerns. What's a bigger concern?
Oof. I don't like that stat at all.
Yeah, right?
I don't like also the fact that Hassan Reddick has as many sacks as the edge rushers for this team right now, and he still hasn't taken the field. I will say, while I am very concerned about this edge rushing and what they're getting from the pass rush, I look at this run defense and I think, hey, what's one way that teams have been able to stop the Eagles in the past? And what's one way that they can really limit what the Eagles are able to do? And it's, hey, keep that offense off the field. And you can really see right now the warts of a team that might just be able to be kept off the field. If they're able to run the football at your expense, time and time again, guess who's not getting on the field? Guess who has limited opportunities? It's this offense. It's what you've built yourself around. I think I go back to that Commanders game 2 years ago in 2022 where it's like, well, is this the blueprint to beat the Eagles? And hey, in that year, it didn't end up being a problem.
Right.
The Eagles were a mediocre-ish running defense, and just because they got pass rush, they were able to overcome that. They had 70 sacks. They end up going to the Super Bowl. Now, did they fully overcome it? Because we were introduced to a guy named Isaiah Pacheco in a big way. But hey, we'll leave that one be. Last year, you really see when everything started to fall apart, both the pass rush and the run defense fall apart at the same time. I think that's really telling, but I think this run defense, if you're not able to slow teams down, you are not going to be able to get this offense on the field. And on top of that, with a linebacker core that, hey, Zach Baun, appreciate you.
Kudos.
Real good start to what we've done here. With a linebacker core that you still don't fully trust, if teams are able to run it at you, I can only imagine they're going to be victimized in play action by a guy in Dean who hasn't shown me enough and a guy in Zach Baun who's still learning how to play interior linebacker. I think you're looking at a pretty dire situation if they're not able to slow down the run.
Yeah, that's such a good point about the time of possession. And you go back to, Bijan Robinson obviously had his way. Time of possession went the Eagles' way because they were winning that game, and statistically they should have won that game. And Nick Sirianni yesterday doubled down on his decision to not go for it, to kick. That's what I'm not going to relitigate that. I think he's wrong. I appreciate him saying it again. Good job for you. If you're conviction. But at the same time, the reason that they were in that position is because the Falcons were able to run the ball. And you look going forward against the Saints team, Alvin Kamara has absolutely turned back the clock. He 4 touchdowns against Dallas. Now, Dallas's defense isn't the best defense, but it's not a terrible defense. And it looks probably similar to, a defense that we saw Monday night in the Eagles. And so he had 3 rushing touchdowns, caught one for another. That was concerning. My problem with the pass rush is that it was a blueprint, and we talked about it all week long last week. The blueprint to beat the Falcons was to make sure Kirk Cousins was uncomfortable. You look at the game before, the Falcons opened the season against the Steelers. Now, I get it. The Steelers' defense is very good. Their offense is atrocious, but their defense is very good. When they win games, it's because of their defense. All they did was pressure Kirk Cousins. That was their game plan. They brought edge rushers, they brought linebackers, they brought everybody. He got sacked multiple times. They had quarterback hurries. You didn't see any of that. There was no dynamic nature for me, and I'm wondering as I was sitting there watching on Monday night. So I also did Phillies, but of course it was great. Ricky's on set with me, and we're both watching the Eagles game. Well, we're clearly paying attention to the Phillies as well. But we were on set for post game, and I couldn't believe it. I could not believe what I was watching with the defensive play calling, and I thought, is this personnel driven? Is this because Vic Fangio feels like he can't do what he wants to do? And that one maybe was a little bit more concerning because that's my first assumption, because I know Vic Fangio's system is good. I know on paper it works. We've seen it work. It's worked other places. I remember looking back at some of the stats when he went to and was in Chicago and how he turned that around. And I thought, gosh, maybe it's something like that. So we're going to continue to talk about that. If it is scheme, is it personnel driven? Is it both? And how can they fix it? And what is your bigger concern? Is it pass rush or is it the terrible run defense? We're going to take our first time out here. This is the Mike Missanelli Show. Amy Fiddle filling in for the next hour and 45 minutes. Stick with us.
ESPN's Adam Schefter.
I had not heard that song on the bump back in when I've listened to this show. Strong one.
Well, sweater weather.
Yeah, it is sweater weather. Almost sweater weather.
Feels like football weather.
I was going to say, it starts out the day as sweater weather, and then you quickly realize, no. It's still short sleeve day.
It's
like a zip up.
kind of uncomfortable in between for me driving in.
Yes, because it's kind of chilly.
Yeah, do I keep the windows down? Do I keep them up? I'm a big windows down guy.
I'm a windows down.
But right now, I kept them up today.
Yeah.
Getting used to it.
Drive home, like last night I was driving home with the windows down.
Yeah, I think at night it's better.
Yeah.
Not that I am big on the whole weather thing, but I think it's warmer at night.
That's right, because you never know. You never know what the weather is.
In my mind, it's warmer at night than it is in the morning.
Oh, that's good stuff. This is Amy Fadul in for Mike Missanelli and Bill Colarulo. Ray Dunn is here with us. Mike and Bill will be with you at noon. I'm just filling in, keeping the seat warm. And we're talking, of course, birds, and more birds. They're going to get into some other stuff as well, I'm sure. We'll talk about the big news about Mayor Parker giving her endorsement on the Sixers arena staying in the city and what that can mean going forward. But we're focusing on the Eagles, and there is plenty to focus on. We're talking about defense first, and we'll get to the offense later, because while the offense was okay, certainly a lot of room for improvement. 21 points from an offense that has the weapons that they do is not enough. I did like what I saw from Jalen Hurts running. I thought that was a bit of a throwback, and I need to see a little bit more of his quick decision-making on that. I liked that. The interception at the end of the game, obviously trying to force it to Smitty. You know, I'm not going to hate on him for that. If it had come in a different scenario, I probably would have had a more strong reaction to it. But I get what he was trying to do. Britton Covey was open. Britton Covey didn't know how much action he was going to get that game when he woke up that day. When he woke up on Monday, he did not realize how important he was going to be in that game.
Britton Covey's parents were surprised how involved Britton Covey was in that game.
There's the one Britton Covey jersey in the link that day was super stoked. Because I think looking at the parking lot, I think I did see one. It was very
really.
Yes, I did see one. There's always those people that you see, like they like to pull out the obscure. Like Shawnee is one of those. My son, he has an Orion Kirkering jersey that I had to go and basically make.
Well, right now that looks like a solid investment.
It looks great. He loves Kirkering. It's one of his favorite guys. I went out and I got it made because you had to specifically. They don't sell it, and I was like, you and Mrs. Kirkering are the only ones that are going to have this if we ever go to a game. And he's worn it multiple times. So I did see a Britton Covey, saw a lot of Nick Foles jerseys. For those of you who don't know, our offices for NBC Sports Philadelphia are inside the Wells Fargo Center, and we're right on the corner. We've kind of built us into the Wells Fargo Center, so we have all these windows. We all look out at the link into the parking lot, so you get to really have FOMO when you watch everybody pile in at
wave up. Hey.
7 a.m.
How are you?
How's it going? Oh, that does look good. Thank you, sir. No, I will not be coming down to partake, sadly.
Little Mad Dog?
That's for
Mad
wins.
Dog 2020?
Mad Dog is for winners.
That's a good point.
Okay?
But you went into that night thinking they were going to win.
So
someone probably had it down there.
If you come to a tailgate with Mad Dog, you can just go ahead and win that tailgate.
That person that probably had it probably didn't see the end, so they probably woke up thinking that the Eagles won.
And when I was leaving, as I was listening to the guys on the radio, and I could not believe when I got in my car, and I thought, why are the Falcons driving? What happened? Because we were signing off on Phillies postgame. There was plenty of people that I think left thought, all right, well, they got this in the bag because they're going to go ahead and go for it on fourth down. And no, they didn't. But we're not going to, again, I keep saying I'm not going to relitigate that, but I have. I'm going to keep doing it because he was wrong, and Nick Sirianni doubled down on it. But let's talk a little defense on this one, because at the end of the day, they allowed the Falcons to, go 70 yards at the end of the game and score the game-winning touchdown, though I do think the way that the offense was called at the previous possession dictated that. You basically dared the Falcons to do that. And Kirk Cousins, for all of his warts and whatever else, is a functioning quarterback. He is a human that can throw. And if you give him time, he will be able to complete those passes. And he does have people that he can throw to, and he has weapons down there. My problem was that they gave him too much time. That goes back to the pass rush, or the lack thereof. There was no pass rush. Also, terrible run defense. And I was asking, what is a bigger concern when you're looking at the defense as a whole? Is it the lack of pass rush? And I brought up the stat that there has been no edge rusher has come away with a sack in 6 straight games going back to last year. You have to go back to Week 14 against Dallas when Hassan Reddick, who's no longer in an Eagles uniform, granted he's not in a Jets uniform either, he had one He came off the edge with Dak Prescott. And his replacement, the guy they paid $50 million to, Bryce Huff, didn't even record a tackle. Britton Covey recorded a tackle.
Wearing 0 for a reason.
Yes. It's truly remarkable. So now you're going back to 10 straight games without a sack for Josh Sweat. Here's a guy who had 13 sacks in 13 games before this. He really, I don't know, and that goes back to something else I was just talking about. Is this a scheme thing? Is it personnel? I mean, the answer is probably a little bit of both, but which one is it more? Is it the fact that they're not breaking free because of something these offenses have reinvented as far as their pass protection? I don't think so. They haven't reinvented the Falcons' offensive line is adequate. There's nothing, you don't look at it and be like, wow, that is a really good offense. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Steelers were able to get home plenty in the week before. They were have tons of quarterback hurries, pressures. They had a couple of sacks. Josh Sweat, who recorded 13 sacks in 13 games a season and a half ago, has now gone 10 straight games without a sack. That's a problem for me when you're looking at what is happening coming off the edge. This is how and there's no pressure up front because we talked about the lack of anything certainly coming that way. And that is the Georgia guys when you're talking about in the middle. And Nick Sirianni talked about those Georgia guys. And that includes, let's be honest, Nakobe Dean as well, who won the job at the linebacker. Here he goes. You're our guy. Now you're looking at him lumped with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. These guys, you've put a lot of stock in. You drafted them at the positions that you did to do something, and they have not done what you expected. Let's listen to Nick Sirianni out of Georgia guys.
I think all three guys have showed moments of having a lot of good plays, and all of them have had bumps too. But that's every player, right? That's not just limited to those guys. Like, we're 1-1 at this particular point, so there's going to be good plays, there's going to be bad plays, but a lot of confidence in those guys and their abilities of why we drafted them in the first place and what they can add to our defense. But we got to be better as a whole, better coaching, better playing on offense, better playing on defense.
So you heard him there. He's like, yeah, listen, they've been okay, they've been good, but we drafted them to do something, and they have just not done something. And I guess the biggest surprise to me is Jalen Carter because of where he started last year, the emphasis that he put on in the offseason about, I've got to worry about my conditioning and I'm all set. And it's the whole product. And yet Jalen Carter's name has not been standing out in any way, shape, or form. So we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the Georgia guys, what defensively they can do. I've got a couple of people on the chat here at YouTube weighing in saying it must be scheme because Josh Sweat seemingly is better in certain instances. So what are they doing and what can Vic Fangio do? We'll continue to talk about that here on 97.5. Of course, you guys can weigh in. You can call or text 610-632-0975. We're coming right back here on the Mike Missanelli Show. Mike Missanelli Show.
I was ready the whole time.
Yeah, listen, you got to press buttons. Mike Missanelli and Bill Colarulo will be with you at noon. I will bring you up to the noon hour. I do want to tell you that our 10 a.m. hour, which is we are in currently, as it is 10:32, 10 a.m. hour is brought to you by Window Nation. Take advantage of Window Nation's 50% off sale on all style windows. Plus, make no down payment with no payments and no interest for 12 full months. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. I did it. 10 o'clock sponsor within the 10 o'clock hour.
Impressive.
It's a win for me. Well, we are talking about what's not been a win for the Eagles, and that is their defense. Defense has been, I don't want to say as advertised because that's our expectations were pretty low, but it's been surprisingly bad in certain areas. I knew the pass rush was going to be a concern. I think you knew that because you lost Hassan Reddick. You weren't sure what Joshua was going to do because he has, as I mentioned, now it's 10 straight games without a sack. He had 13 in 13 games a season and a half ago. So it's a little concerning on that. The run defense is maybe a bigger question as far as why it's bad. Now, I'm more concerned about the lack of pass rush because I think that dictates how the rest of the defense is going to have to play. But when I look at why the run defense is bad, maybe I'm more confused. And we heard from Nick Sirianni just a moment ago about the Georgia guys, and that falls on Jalen Carter and obviously Jordan Davis. Nakobe Dean as well. But really, when you look at the run defense, I'm confused as to, one, why they're not getting any pressure up front, and two, why they're not. Jordan Davis he is built as a run stopper. Literally, this is how this guy is constructed. He is a behemoth, a man, just a man that is just giant. You guys have seen him, you've seen him, right? So what's going on there? Is that scheme? Is there something that these offensive lines are doing to negate Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis specifically? That I don't know. I watched the All-22, and so we get these clips, and everybody, you can see them all the time. Everybody puts them out online. But when you look at the All-22, and I remember I was here last week with the morning show, and I was talking about the All-22 of the Packers, and there were some questions on that defensive front because they didn't get a lot of pressure on Jordan Love. And I thought, okay, certainly they're going to fix that because you're going against Kirk Cousins, and the one thing that the Steelers-Falcons game taught us is that if you pressure Kirk Cousins, you can win. Steelers didn't even score a touchdown in that game. They won 18-10. They was all field goals. And yet the Eagles, either they didn't learn from that or they were unable to execute. So I guess that's my question. Is it scheme related or is it personnel? And the answer obviously is both. But which one is it more? So, Ray, is it more scheme related for you as why the run defense is so porous, or is it personnel?
Right now, I lean towards personnel. I mean, we've seen this work before in the league. And if we look at what they're doing defensively, yes, maybe this scheme right now is on its way out in the NFL. Like we just looked a season ago, I know our guy Lance in Arizona, who calls all the time, called, I think it was post-game, we were doing it Monday night, and was like, this is the scheme's going out. He's like, there's this whole graphic, and he was so dead set on it. He found a tweet from like 2023 from sometime at the end of last season, sent it to me of like all the ranks of the Fangio tree defensive coordinators from a season ago and where their defense is ranked. And it was something that Andrew Salciunas at the time working on middays and I had talked about. Like, it might be on its way out. The thing is, with this scheme, you need a couple of big things to make this work. And a lot of that goes to the defensive front. If you have a stout defensive front, you're looking at a successful, and that's pretty much any scheme in the NFL, but specifically looking at what the Eagles have right now. Why did they lose that game against the Falcons? They got no pressure in that final drive. There was no reason for Kirk Cousins to be under any pressure aside from the situation. Assuming you can handle yourself in that situation, you were fine. He had nobody around him. And then when you get to the run defense aspect of this, I'm not so sure that I believe in Bryce Huff's ability to stop the run. I think that was a question mark coming into this season, and if you had that as a question mark coming into the season, the answer right now is a resounding no of him being able to do that for you. I think Jalen Carter, his ability to impact the game has been hampered by the fact that no one around him right now is effective. He's being doubled pretty much every single time, and the only other player on the interior that we've really seen anything out of, you saw a sack from Milton Williams. The only other player in that interior, though, that really did anything was Thomas Booker.
Right.
Thomas Booker was the guy that had the most to do with the interior of that defensive line. That's a problem.
Absolutely.
That's a massive problem. And on the play I mentioned where Williams gets the sack, I saw Nolan Smith get crushed by Bijan Robinson.
So bad. He ate him up.
And that was a question mark with him when he came out of college, and since he's been a Philadelphia Eagle, of whether he's got the physicality, whether he's got the size to last at that position in the NFL. And right now we've seen, hey, Nolan Smith doesn't have it right now. Bryce Huff doesn't have it right now. Nobody's giving Jalen Carter help on the inside. And Josh Sweat, for as good as he was as pretty much I would call him a second edge rusher when you have Reddick having the season that he's having, in the middle of that year, you have Cox having a good season, you have Hargrave who's having a good season, Sweat was able to really feast. Right now, when it's shown that you need to be the guy, you need to be the one generating pressure, I haven't seen it yet from him either. And am I supposed to put all this on 36-year-old Brandon Graham? Like, I think you're starting to look at the personnel in the front of this defense, and if you just look at that defensive front, you can start to have the argument on both sides of what you're talking about with pass rush, what I'm talking about run defense, and say, yeah, you are in a pretty bad spot because of personnel, and I haven't even gotten to the linebacker group that we were so worried about.
And that's the thing. When you don't have anything up front, the linebackers are even going to be more tested and exposed. And the linebacker play is better. There's no question. But the bar was so low last year. So you had guys that are not even in the league anymore playing.
You could trip over the bar.
Right. That's how low it was.
Yeah.
You need to look out for it because it's all the way on the ground. So, yes, the linebacking core is better, but they're not good. It's not a great linebacking core. And so when they're getting really tested so much in a game because there's no defensive pressure up front, nothing coming up front. And you have a really good point, Ray, on what you're talking about with Jalen Carter getting the double. That's one of the reasons when you look at why he was able, or why he fell off, because he had such a strong start to his rookie season. And a lot of people thought, well, maybe it was the rookie. Well, yes and no. I mean, at Georgia, they play a lot of games because they have the 2 games afterwards. So it's not an incomparable thing to think, all right, he only plays 10, 12 games. He plays about 14, 15 games when he's in college.
Yeah, they expect a conference championship.
They're going all the way. They play in the SEC, then they play in the college football playoffs. So they're playing additional games. So he is used to playing more games than normal and at a high level against high competition. It really wasn't that. When you watch the last couple of games, sure, I'm sure he was gassed because it is a different game as a whole. But he also got a lot more double teams. And that's when you saw Fletcher Cox really eat because he was able to get free because he's used to getting those double teams. But he wasn't. Jalen Carter was. And now that Jalen Carter's getting those double teams, there is no one like Fletcher Cox out there to pick up the slack. No one else is filling that role. It's bad.
It's a worthwhile conversation also when you're talking about the Georgia guys specifically while we look at what they were able to do. Georgia, in a number of its games, like there's one thing I think in college that you can really apply to the NFL, and like even with the SEC talent, there are some teams that just have an overabundance of it that you look at that Georgia defense, like everyone was probably the best of the SEC, the best that they had. And you all make yourself better by playing alongside one another. The Eagles, in terms of their defense's talent over its competition, is not the same as what Georgia was over its competition. And also, at that level, you are going to be able to get by at times, not necessarily playing with the best form, not necessarily being able to do everything just right because, hey, you're Jalen Carter. And let's be honest with you, some of these offensive linemen you're playing against right now are going to be selling houses in a couple weeks. Some of the, it's not, they are SEC guys. They'll probably get a chance to play, Canadian football. They don't have a career beyond it, but they're not necessarily going to be top-tier NFL guys. And not to say the Falcons' offensive line's top-tier, but I think some of the bad habits you could get into, and I'm not saying it's Carter-specific, I think this is probably more of a Jordan Davis conversation than anything else. Some of those habits you can get into being so dominant in college, if they carry over to the pros and you're not able to correct it, and you don't get into a sense of correcting it, then you're looking at, hey, can you do it at this level? Nolan Smith, you were able to get by on athleticism. Guess what? The guys up here are just as athletic, and they're a lot stronger. How are you going to be able to adjust to that? And I think that's been part of the issue, I think, for the Georgia guys as we look at them adjusting to the NFL. Sure, take it from the best defense we've ever seen in college football. Seems like a great idea. If there's no adjustment to the NFL or they're not developing into NFL players, that's a concern, one, with the organization's development, and two, with the guys.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about the development, because when you look at Nolan Smith, he was an undersized guy, and he knows that. And he talked about it in the offseason. I remember going down there, and it was like one of the mini camps. I put on 20 extra pounds, and it's muscle, but I still have the same speed. He's used to being one of the fastest guys out there. Now he's in the NFL. They're all fast. Everybody's fast. Everybody is the best player. There's a reason there's only 1,500 people in the world thereabouts that do this job. That's it. You have to be the best of the best. So the concerns now are rearing their ugly heads with Nolan Smith's size and strength when you see a running back. Now, granted, Bijan Robinson is strong. I mean, he's built like a Saquon Barkley type. But he absolutely steamrolled, manhandled a guy that should have been able to at least, I don't know, keep him free enough so he could have gotten by him. Pushed him around to the side. Nolan Smith got eaten up by Bijan Robinson. Eaten up on that last drive.
And that's only a microcosm of the bigger problem.
Right, exactly.
It's like, yeah, hey, he was going after it. Like, someone's sitting in their car right now, and I can hear you. I can't actually, but I can hear you in my head of like, oh, he was actually trying to get after the offensive lineman, and Bijan Robinson came over and knocked him over. Yeah, but the issue is what that represents.
Exactly.
He's not able to get past that offensive lineman. Like, it's not a question of, should Bijan Robinson, should we hold that against him? He's not been able to get himself free when he actually gets blocked. And that, hey, Nolan Smith, I can have that thought about you as a first-round pick that's still trying to find your way in the league. I'm concerned about the guy that got $51 million.
Bryce Huff.
And it showed me that he can't get off a block right now either.
Can't get off a block, can't make a tackle, can't get free to do anything that's conducive to helping his defense. Not in the pass rush, not in the run defense. It's truly remarkable. And here's a guy, and again, I know it feels like we're piling on, but you paid him to replace Hassan Reddick. No, it wasn't a trade, but you made the choice. You said, no, Bryce Huff will be able to do it, even though he's a guy that had not done that. He had not played the number of snaps that you're going to ask for him. He's not done the kind of work that Hassan Reddick had done. He's the guy. You thought, this guy can do it. And now you're looking at him through 2 games, and it is a small sample size, but it's 2 important games because you're looking at 1-1 now, and then you're staring at a team coming up, Saints that are coming in hot, and they're playing at home, very loud place to play. Their offense is firing all cylinders. Derek Carr looks like he's it's almost like bizarre how good Derek Carr looks. And you're thinking, it's not going to get solved on a short week with this personnel. What are we doing? What is Howie Roseman thinking right now? Does he call the Jets and be like, hey, yeah, what's going on with Hassan? How's that going?
He's outside Hassan Reddick's house, boombox.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go. Don't say anything. It just you have to wonder what Vic Fangio is trying to accomplish right now, because I think that his scheme is good, and I think people have figured out his scheme. But if the scheme can be sound and at least functional, if he has players, right now he does not. He's got like 2. He's got 2 guys, certainly in that defensive front.
The front, call it 7. It's really a front 6 at this point,
right,
with the way that they play most of their defense in nickel anyways, so it's really a front 6. We're talking the 2 interior linebackers, then the front 4. But, if we want to say just the front, defensive front, I'll go with that.
Front. No matter how it looks.
If I told you coming into the season that probably the most productive player through 2 weeks on this defense was Zach Bond, where do you think this team is?
I would have said we're 0-2.
Yeah, so I guess in that sense, they're 1-1. But think about it. In terms of what you've gotten off the edge, the only sack we've seen off the edge has been Zach Bond.
Right.
Because they moved him out to edge for a play, and he was able to...
which is his normal... which is where he's played.
Exactly. Natural position for him. He's able to get the sack there. That's great. When it comes to tackles and just finding the football, he's also been the guy there, again, as an interior linebacker, which is something he hasn't done in his career. It's a problem for this defense. It's a problem with the personnel. And you mentioned Howie Roseman, what he must be thinking right now. I know Bill's not on this show till noon. I hesitate to sound like Bill here, but it does go back to the investments that Howie Roseman made on the defense, because you're talking about Bryce Huff as the edge rusher that you paid $51 million has given you nothing so far. Devin White, if I'm saying that Bryce Huff has given you nothing so far, Devin White has not taken a snap.
He's even worn a jersey out there on the field yet.
I remember I was on 2nd Street at Northern Liberties, one of my favorite establishments, getting ready for a trivia night. And I saw the Schefter News that they signed Devin White. And from across the street, I heard Eagles chants because people were excited that they signed a linebacker and spent money on a linebacker. $4 million for a guy who got benched. That's how starved this town was for a linebacker. And this is what it's been so far. Right now, you've seen back-to-back weeks where C.J. Gardner-Johnson's made a massive mistake, whether it be missing a tackle. Okay, he was playing on ice, so fine. Well, excuse the Brazil one. There was another massive mistake last week. Yeah, he made a big play, but bad. 2 big mistakes back-to-back weeks. And if you're looking at this offseason and what they did in terms of outside of the draft, just bringing in guys, signing guys, he's probably the one of the three that's been the best.
Yeah.
And you talk about low bars right now, he's clearing it because the other two, one's played and given you zero, and the other just hasn't.
And Devin White is really puzzling, and those guys will be asked about him, and I'm sure he'll be asked about again when we bring the coordinators. It's coming around 1:20. Both coordinators will be speaking today from the NovaCare complex, and you can listen to it right here on 97.5. But he was a guy that showed you a lot early on in training camp, and he's not that old. It's concerning the fact that he can't even get on the field, and the scheme is with this. Basically, most of the time, it is six front. I am kind of over that. I'd like to have a few more in that box. I'd rather have seven. Let's go ahead. What can Devin White do? Give me the 3-4 and give me Devin White out there, because right now, if you've got Zach Bond out there too, you at least can get a little bit more pressure. There's nothing doing up front. There's nothing doing as far as pressure coming through the front and the middle. And we just talked about the only edge sack is coming from a linebacker. The last edge rusher to get a sack was Hassan Reddick in Week 14 of last year. So I'm just wondering, scheme-wise, Fangio does have a lot of different looks. I know he's lacking on personnel for all of those different looks. But don't you have to take a page from what you've seen from other teams? Like, look at what the Falcons did against the Eagles on some of it. When they knew there was no A.J. Brown in that game, so they knew where Dallas Goedert, who has been a non-factor, they knew where he was going to be coming from. They need to line him up differently. That's something we could talk about in the next hour. But you're going forward, and people are looking at the Eagles, who have a myriad of weapons, and they're running different looks. The Falcons defense isn't all world. It's not a great defense, clearly. But they were able to get home. They were able to come off the edge. They were able to pressure. Now, they didn't stop Saquon Barkley, but they were able to pressure certainly the wide receivers, the tight ends, and Jalen Hurts. And I looked at that when you're looking at that all 22, like that kind of bird's eye view, you're thinking, like, what is the difference? Why can't some – and that's when it does come back to personnel. So what can Vic Fangio do? Is it bringing another guy in the box? Is it changing up the linebacking core? Because right now these things are not really working in any way that's going to be conducive to a 17-game season.
That's the scary part of this, because when you start to say what can you do, you look at the personnel and you start to question what really can you do. Like, aside from hoping, which is the line that we dropped pretty much all offseason, it's a defense built on hope. Right now, the hope is that, hey, Bryce Huff, you learn to be what they want you to be. Hey, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, you play up to the billing that you've had. Zach Bond, you keep doing what you're doing, all right? You know what?
You're good.
You're cool. We're cool with that.
We're good with you.
You know, we hope that Milton Williams shows out in the contract year for himself. You hope that Josh Sweat does the same. Like, I think this defense needed to bat like 500.
Yes.
And right now, they're not batting 500. Like, you didn't need 100% of the moves to work out, but we need to see like a solid 50% of them work out.
That's what it's troubling. It really is, because you're looking at everything across the board, and there is talent on this defense. There is talent. There's no doubt about it. And I'm going to talk about the holes in it, but there are players that can really come through for you. Secondary has shown that it is better. The linebacking sure is better. It's not good, but it's better. The defensive front is not good. The edge is not good. And you invested some big numbers into that edge. And for it not to happen has been real problematic. All right, we're going to continue to talk about the Birds and some of the issues on defense, how they can correct them. We want you to weigh in. 610-632-0975. Is it going to be more scheme? Is it personnel? What can Vic Fangio do? Because they have the Saints in New Orleans coming up on Sunday afternoon. This is the Mike Missanelli Show. Amy Fiddle in with you until noon. We're coming right back. especially when it's Raymond Dunn. Amy Fiddle in with you as we start the 11 o'clock hour. Mike Missanelli and Bill Colarulo will be along at noon. Do want to tell you that Andrew DiCecco is going to be joining us in about 30 minutes, talking birds, of course. And at 1:20, we'll have both coordinators, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, talking about, I'm sure they'll discuss plenty more on what happened on Monday night, but also looking ahead quite a bit to the Saints as we try to turn the page after that disaster of a loss. Just to let you know what I was doing on Monday. So I was working the Phillies post-game show. We're watching the Eagles game at the same time. We're on. Unfortunately, the Phillies had lost, so we're just trying to wrap up that show so we can get out and finish the Eagles. And when Saquon Barkley dropped it, it was not good for obvious reasons, but it actually helped the Phillies crew. If anybody was watching that, God bless you. You would see Ricky standing up to say goodbye because he was trying to run out of our studio to try to beat the track. Literally, he was standing up for the goodbye of our last 25 seconds, wearing sweatpants, by the way. You could kind of
One
see.
of a kind, that Ricky Bo.
He is the best. Ricky Bo, of course, coming up with Tyrone at 2 o'clock on the best show ever. But we are continuing to talk about the birds, and I see that we have a text on the defense. We've been talking more about the defense. We'll get into the offense as well. I'm going to ask Andrew about some of the things. But as far as the defense goes, it's been problematic. It was problematic on that last drive. It was problematic overall when you didn't get any kind of pressure on Kirk Cousins. And you certainly didn't stop Bijan Robinson. And you're looking at the team that you're going to be facing next, and Derek Carr, who's got an almost perfect passer rating. Granted, it's probably a little bit elevated given the fact that he opened the season against the Panthers, but his passer rating's over 142. It's 142 point something. And then obviously Alvin Kamara coming off a 4-touchdown day against the Cowboys. But there's a text on the defense, right?
Yes. Tom from Lansdowne. Vic Fangio has been around a long time, simply has not been dealt a great hand on talent. Need to try to bring pressure with linebackers, safeties, and blitz. Issue number one right now, nearly 675 pounds of disappointment in Carter and Davis. Simple as that. If they're able to play dominant football, Eagles go 11-6, if not 9-8.
Wow. I mean, 11-6 right now would be a dream. The way that this defense has been playing, because they have some formidable quarterbacks they're going to be facing. They have some good running backs. And the pass rush has been real problematic. I do want to get to Vinny, who's been on the line quite a bit, calling in. Let's check in. Vinny from Westchester. How you doing, Vinny?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good, bud. How are you?
Good. Amy, it was great seeing you Saturday at the floor dedication.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out.
Friend, and absolutely. Dick Delaney's been a mentor of mine for probably the last 15 years. So it was great being there. Your mother-in-law did a great job on her speech. It was awesome.
It was awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, so very good. But anyway, I had no problem with the play call on 3rd and 3.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Saquon catches that 10 times out of 11.
Right.
And why didn't they go for it on 4th?
Yeah.
That's
a problem.
Because even if you don't get it on 4th down, the Falcons' mindset changes from touchdown to field goal.
Correct.
And they're only trying to get in the field goal range to tie the game at that point instead of scoring a touchdown to win the game. And there's another, X amount of seconds off the clock. It just was I love the play call. I would do it again. And I hope they do it again because they'll catch it next time. But the not going for it on 4th down and giving them the ball back with almost 2 minutes left is just bizarre.
Yeah, you're giving them, a 90-yard field to drive as opposed to a 70-yard. And the thing is, you don't want to give them anything. But if you go for it on 4th down and you get it, then the ball game's over, clearly.
Sure.
Yeah. I didn't mind the Saquon call because I think it's a catch that he would make 99% of the time. Obviously, he didn't. These things happen. But to not go for it, and Nick Sirianni doubled down on that. He talked about that, and he said basically, yeah, I'd still go for the field goal to be up 6-3. He's basically saying that we now would have converted the 4th down, which is fine, I guess. But he said, there's numbers dictate that. The analytics dictate that. I don't know that the analytics do dictate that. I think he's looking at precedent and what the league has done more than what he was looking at what the analytics say. Because I think the analytics would say give them the longer field and force them all the way down it. Personally, that's what I think. I don't
know if there's enough sample size with the analytics with the new kickoff.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing with the new kickoff. So, Vinny, thanks for the call. I appreciate you. And thanks for coming out to Westchester. That was a good day. Did I hang up on him? Yeah, there we go. what we were talking about, what Vinny talked about, Westchester University renamed their basketball court the Kane Delaney Court, named after Deirdre Kane, the winningest coach at Westchester basketball, and Dick Delaney, the longtime coach, second winningest coach in Westchester basketball history. They both had 20-plus years at Westchester, and it was a really nice day. Like 400 people came out to the court. It was wonderful. Vinny, obviously one of those guys. And for those who don't know, Deirdre Kane is my mother-in-law. So I was out there with supporting her with my husband and my boys and my father-in-law, and about 300 of, I felt like 200 of Deirdre's former players. She had teammates from when she played at Paul VI over in Jersey, teammates or players she coached when she coached at Penn, Swarthmore, Salisbury State. It was really a great day. So thanks, Vinny, for calling in and giving that little shout out and for supporting the Westchester basketball and Coach Delaney and Coach Kane as they got the court named after them. But the thing about that Saquon Barkley call, and a lot of people are going to say, no, just run the ball. It's Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley makes that catch. He knows it. I think he took a lot of weight on, and I get that. That's the type of player he is. He's a winner, and I think that he's going to put a lot of pressure on himself. So I thought, I get what you're saying, but I would have gone for it on fourth down. I don't know what Nick Sirianni is talking about when he says the analytics. I know what he said. I heard him yesterday, and I know we've got a couple of the sound bites. I don't know that we need to play them again, but he basically said, around the league, fourth down calls, 4 minutes, 1 to 5 points. Like, that's what the numbers say. But don't you at some point, Ray, the feel of it was you're trying to push them down as much as you can. Go for it on fourth down. Worst case, you don't get it, and they have to go 91 yards.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and the reason I haven't crushed him for this specifically is because I was sitting here watching it in the moment, and my immediate takeaway was that ball needs to be caught.
Right.
Like, I thought they had good process on third down. My mind on fourth down, I had already turned it to, I don't know if this defense is going to hold. So if in my mind I had already accepted that in my head there was the auto kick there, that's why I haven't crushed him for it. However, the explanation for it, it's marrying analytics and precedent. Like, yeah. I think
pick one.
We haven't been, I don't want to say as a town, but I think the conversation on this hasn't been nuanced to the point of like, hey, like this is marrying two things. A lot of people have been yelling about analytics. A lot of people have been yelling about the way the game is supposed to be played. This is the gray area between the two, because if you're looking at numbers, your win probability and all those things, numbers, people start throwing game theory out there. All of that tells you in that situation to go for it on fourth.
Right.
He's telling you, and his explanation, if you take him at his word, because either he's lying to you or he's telling you the absolute full truth. If you take him at his word, his chart says in that situation they're going to kick, which means that his chart takes into the precedent of the league and also brings numbers to be a part of it. So that to me starts to ask the question of, okay, where's the consistency in terms of the way that he delivers? That is the bigger question for me coming out of this, because I can't undo what's already been done. And on top of that, I'm not crushing him for it because in my head, I didn't have the immediate, they got to go here.
Right.
For someone that did, all right, fine. I think a lot of us, when it doesn't work out, jump to, that he absolutely should have went for it there. My mind didn't jump to it, so that's why I'm not going to crush him for it. But I do think the explanation yesterday left me thinking, okay, where's the consistency in what he's looking for? Because if he's saying the precedent around the league, I would argue that earlier in the game, when you're talking about I didn't have a problem with them going for it early on.
Exactly.
But if you want to talk about precedent around the league, a lot of people would tell you putting those first 3 points on the board is a big deal. And I think that's where I get a little concerned with this and where it's going. It's the inconsistency of, okay, you don't always have to go by the numbers. You don't always have to go by precedent. But if it's burning you, both sides.
And what's coming up next? What do you do next time?
Where will we get consistency from you? What should we know what to expect? And hey, again, this all becomes irrelevant if they get one sack, like a little bit of pressure.
Any kind of pressure.
Yeah, like
stop the run at some point.
Maybe not even a pressure, like ball just deflected.
Quarterback hurry.
Anything. I understand where people are frustrated not going for it on fourth there, and I understand honestly the thought process of, hey, being up 3 as compared to being up 6, like you're forcing them to be more and more aggressive. I don't know what Zach Robinson is, a play caller. Like that's also like, is Robinson thinking, I'm on the road against a really great offense, let's go down the field and score a touchdown, forget trying to tie this game? Because that's something, again, you can't put into it. So I think there's a lot of factors that make it maybe I'm being too easy on Sirianni here, but make it difficult for me to think that, there's a one-size-fits-all answer to this. the end result is what he didn't work.
And I think that's the thing. I think it's because of the way that the game played out that play call is even more glaring. The way that they lost the game, the way that they were unable to stop them when they needed to. You go back to that more. It is more glaring. It's not a great play call to go for it in a vacuum. You could probably argue either way in the vacuum, but when you look at the way that the game ended, it sticks out even more. We're going to continue to talk about this. Andrew DiCecco is going to join us in about 15 minutes, talk a little bit more about this defense, and let's get into some of the offense because Jalen Hurts looked good at times, but that offense should score more than 21 points, let's be honest. And they're going to be facing a Saints team. The defense is better, and certainly the Saints offense is very good. You're listening to the Mike Missanelli Show. Amy Fiddle with you until noon when Mike and Bill come with you. We'll be right back here on 97.5 The Fanatic. For the next about 40 minutes or so, filling in for Mike Missanelli. Mike and Bill will be with you at noon. We're also going to hear from Andrew DiCecco coming up in about 10 minutes. And later on in the Mike Missanelli Show, around 1:20 or so, we're going to hear from the coordinators, Eagles coordinators. We will bring you that live. Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. As everybody trying to turn the page to the Saints, we have to look back at Monday night to see where we went wrong. And then obviously going forward, the Saints are a formidable offense. They're averaging 45.5 points. They just put 44 on the Cowboys. I know the Cowboys defense isn't all world, but neither is the Eagles, so it is a little concerning. Alvin Kamara, 4 touchdowns, 3 rushing, 1 passing. And I think I've mentioned it a couple times earlier on in this show. But Derek Carr, listen, Kubiak must be some kind of maestro because he has Derek Carr looking absolutely flawless. Chris Olave is a great receiver. I like Chris Olave. Don't get me wrong. But Derek Carr, you're going to tell me that his passer rating is over 142? That is Derek Carr. Derek Carr, not Joe Burrow. No.
It's every 4 years. There are things that happen every 4 years. And every 4 years in America, Derek Carr has a career
comes
year.
To play.
2016 with the Raiders.
That's true.
2020 was his highest quarterback rating as a starter in the NFL. And welcome to 2024. There are things that happen every 4 years. The Olympics, elections, and Derek Carr having a career year. I'm sorry, it's just on schedule.
It is.
I don't know if he'll still be around for the 2028 year, but 2024 is his year.
Derek Carr has absolutely. He and Alvin Kamara have been unlocked, and Gary Kubiak has got to be a large part of that. He is calling the plays for them down there in New Orleans. Tough place to play. You worry about the run defense, the lack thereof. You worry about the lack of pass rush when you're looking at 2 guys that have been able to carve up. Granted, it is only 2 weeks in. But these are the 2 samples that we've got, and it's not looking very good. We've been talking about the lack of pass rush, what Bryce Huff has been unable to do. Certainly the defensive front, which is a front 6, should be 7 personally, but a little bit more pressure up front. Jalen Carter getting double-teamed, Jordan Davis. You mentioned it. Booker is the only guy. If you had told me at the end of the day that I'd be talking about Thomas Booker, I thought, wow, what was the score? How much did they lose by? That is no, and that's nothing against Thomas Booker. He's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. But he should not be talked about in the way that you really need to talk about the guys that you invested the draft capital and the contract capital that you did and everybody else along that line.
He had what, 9 snaps, 10 snaps, 3 tackles? Meanwhile, the 2 first-round picks you got in the middle there had what, a combined 2 tackles?
Combined 2 tackles.
Not great.
Not what you're looking
exactly
for.
what you're looking for
well
from
done,
that group.
Thomas Booker.
Yeah.
I mean, you really came home 75% of the time.
You've got a job. You've got a space within NovaCare. You are pretty like
you have your locker's not one of those ones they roll in and out.
No.
You get your name on it now.
Yes. That's great for you. Number 59. I'll see the 59 jerseys, I'm sure, somewhere out there.
Yes.
Listen, a lot of people got Jalen Carter jerseys. Maybe it's time to get Thomas Booker jerseys.
Well, he's certainly performing. And there's some things that we need to talk about as far as unlocking. And I'm anxious to hear from Vic Fangio. He will be speaking along with Kellen Moore starting at 1:20 today. We will bring you that here. We do want you guys to weigh in on some of this. We're talking a lot about the defense. Plenty to get to on that. We're going to talk about some offense as well. 610-632-0975. You can call or text. Let's go to Chris right now talking a little Jalen Hurts. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Hey, good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Good. I wanted to touch a little bit on the Jalen Hurts. I need your help. I feel like I'm going crazy every time I watch these Eagles games, and I see Jalen Hurts.
You're not alone.
I'm having flashbacks of him running out to the right, and I see a really good pocket most of the time that he can step up. And maybe you're doing it as well, where you're yelling, step up, throw the ball. Please, dear God, don't run, don't get hurt, because our entire hopes and dreams are on this man's shoulders, and I just don't know if he continues to run that way, if he's going to make it all the way through the season.
It's interesting. It's interesting, Chris, because you want him to run because it is such a big aspect of his game and how he functions as a quarterback, as a high-level quarterback. I mean, he is a good quarterback. He needs the run, but you want him to either make that decision. So to your point about like yelling, like step up, I want him just to make the decision and do it. Either you do it or you don't, but the hesitation is where you can get hurt. If you're hesitating at any point, whether it's your run or your pass, that's where it can come back to bite you. That's where your decisions really need to be that quick. And so you're never going to take the run out of his repertoire, but to your point, I think it's valid in the fact that you need him to be smart about it, right?
Exactly, and the fact that it's always escaping to the right, I think it's just starting to get predictable for defenses to really prevent him from damaging them. I would really like to see, if he is going to run, I know it's not his nature, but to go and run in between the tackles. I think he could do a lot of damage there.
Yeah.
But, again, this might not be, the type of quarterback he is. And the second thing is, I don't know what your take is on this, but the Kellen Moore offense, I don't know. Maybe I was just too excited whenever he came in. I just was thinking that throughout these last couple games that I was going to see something entirely different. I was going to see some creative screens. I was going to see a jet sweep. I was going to really see this motion come into effect. And in the first couple games, I have to say I'm a little disappointed. I felt like there would be more creativity. Am I the only one that is there on that?
You're not the only one. And Chris, thanks for the call. We appreciate you. You're not the only one. I mean, motion, when we first saw it, I remember the first mini camp I went to, which is so vanilla and so watered down. They're basically installing everything because some of these guys hadn't even been to the rookie camps or whatever else. The first time you saw it, there wasn't, I'm going to exaggerate, a collective gasp, but there was definitely like a pause where we all looked and were like, does that happen? Did you see that? I saw it. Did you see it? That happened. It's motion. And there was usage in the middle of the field. Two things that we did not see at all last year. So I still think that they're getting their feet under them. I think not having A.J. Brown last week on Monday really hurt them in trying to adjust on the fly because he was first listed as questionable when the practice reports first came out, and then it was doubtful, and then it was out, and it was like, uh-oh. All right, now we really have to reformulate some of this stuff.
Yeah, it is interesting, though. I'll go back to what I heard.
There's no motion right now. Yeah,
after week one, Dominique Foxworth on Get Up. I remember hearing it and being like, oh, everyone's got a week to prepare for these games. What, really? You got to do this to me? I watched what I thought in week one. I thought there was creativity, so I liked what I saw in week one. It's funny. I came away week one upset with the quarterback, happy with the offensive coordinator. I came away week two happy with the quarterback, upset with the offensive coordinator. So everybody's 1-1 this week. I did listen to Dominique Foxworth say, it's going to be more difficult for him to make that happen week in and week out. You had all that time to prepare for week one, and I kind of brushed aside, come on. Watching week two, I was like, all right, you know what?
Okay.
There's a reason that guy gets paid to talk about football. That guy knows a thing or two. Maybe you should listen. So I didn't feel too encouraged walking away from it. It's something that we all just kind of took for granted, and I think we saw it with Fangio, where it's like, yeah, but there's an experienced defensive coordinator. It's going to make a baseline better defense.
Yes.
In theory, yeah. I think.
But in practice?
With Kellen Moore, it's like, yeah, this guy has had success as an offensive coordinator in this league. And it still is 2 weeks into his time here. So you don't write anyone off. But we all just assume everyone was going to take to the coaching. Everything was going to work rainbows, butterflies. We're in a positive world here. Not necessarily. It's going to take a little bit of time. And I got to say, week two, I came away a little underwhelmed by the play calling. And, man, if I have to see 6 more Britton Covey screens.
When the first wide receiver screen I saw on Monday, I wanted to throw my remote at the television. And we're all watching together at work. And I thought, no more wide receiver screens.
Is there a way, and I want to know this very seriously from everyone that's been employed by the Eagles for the last 5 years, is there a way to include a third wide receiver into an offense that is not a wide receiver screen? Because if you're not Brown or Smith, it feels like your role is get out of the way or catch the screen pass.
And that's the thing. That is the role. It's just you're here to do one thing. It's probably just a block when you think about it. But that's the wide receiver screen. I thought had gone by the wayside. You did not see it week one. You did see it in multitudes with Britton Covey in week two, and I didn't need to see it. That was any of the motion was almost like a false motion because of that to me.
That and these illegal downfield penalties on the screens. If you're going to make it a part of the offense, we've seen it for how long?
You got to practice it then.
I'm going to get upset.
Yeah, you got to practice it because how many times you see the O-lineman down? It's like stop doing that. We were going to talk a little bit more about Jalen Hurts running because I did think it was a good game for Jalen Hurts. I thought he. Aside from the interception late, I thought he played a good game. I thought the run aspect of his game was a real positive, and I like Jalen Hurts running. I talked about that, all summer long. I thought that was still going to be an important aspect. So we'll get into that. Andrew DiCecco is going to join us. Stick with us here. Mike Missanelli Show. We are with you, obviously, until 2 o'clock coming up. Thursday yacht rock right there. It's Thursday, Mike Missanelli Show. Amy Fiddle with you for the next half hour. Mike and Bill coming your way at noon to take you right up to the best show ever. We're going to hear from the coordinators coming up at 1:20. Both Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio will be addressing the media. But right now, we're going to welcome in our good friend, Andrew DiCecco. Andrew, we're talking lots of birds, and I know you've been at practice this week. You've been in the locker room. I got to ask you, and I asked this to Barrett the other day, the locker room after Monday's game was down, as they should have been. What was it like yesterday? What is the feeling you get? Because these guys do have to turn the page so quickly.
Yeah, that's a great question, Amy. So it was very somber after Monday night, which is a good sign. Obviously, you want to see players caring, and you want them to have that sort of sit in their mind and know that they have to move forward from it. But yesterday, and there wasn't a ton of players in there, but it was a little bit more quiet, but it was still quiet. But I think you started to see people start to open up a little bit more because you do have to turn the page. It's a short week, and I really do feel like that game on Monday night was going to be the early season wake up call to hit that reset button and move forward because they have a really tough game against a really good Saints team.
Yes, they do. Andrew DiCecco joining us on the Comcast Business Hotline, and that Saints team is good. I kind of throw out the first game statistically. I think it's a little bit inflated because it's the Panthers, but they just played the Cowboys and thumped them pretty good. You know, they put up 44 against the Cowboys. They're playing at home, a place they are very formidable. It's very loud. We all know that. Alvin Kamara, 4 touchdowns against the Cowboys. Derek Carr has a nearly perfect passer rating, over 142. And then you're looking at this Eagles defense that couldn't get to Kirk Cousins. They couldn't get any pressure on him, and they couldn't really stop them, not when it, at any point in the game, and certainly not when it counted. So going forward, what is more concerning for you, Andrew? Is it the lack of a pass rush, or is it the bad run defense?
I have to say it's the pass rush, Amy, because without that, Vic Fangio's defense doesn't work. It's a bend but don't break philosophy, which is great and all, but eventually it's going to bend until it breaks if you're not able to get to the quarterback. And with someone like Kirk Cousins, you started to see in the third quarter and early into the fourth quarter, he started to get into a rhythm. He wasn't getting affected, and he started to sort of pick apart the middle of the Eagles' defense. If you remember back to, I want to say the 2022 season, maybe it was Derek Carr, where he just was he was able to pick apart the intermediary levels with little resistance. And those are the type of rhythm throws that players like that tend to thrive off of. And if you don't have any sort of a threat coming off the edge, obviously that's going to be problematic. I think the run defense, and I was actually surprised to see Vic Fangio implement so many 4-man fronts as he did. I thought that he would see some more 5s. But I think that can be somewhat cleaned up. I think that's still going to, your personnel kind of is what it is. But the pass rush to me, particularly with Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith, where you're not getting anything from either player and they really do need to step up, is the most concerning.
Yeah, we're talking with Andrew DiCecco here on the Comcast Business Hotline. And Andrew, I think you hit the nail on the head. It really is. The lack of a pass rush predicates everything else behind it defensively. So then you're having a lot more pressure on the linebackers and then obviously the secondary beyond that because of the way Fangio's defense is set up. I like your point. Ray and I were talking about that earlier, having only 5 up there. 4, 5, you need to have more people in the box when you're not getting that kind of pressure. I think it needs to be quantity instead of quality because the quality just isn't there. So schematically, going forward against Alvin Kamara, who is, this is a short week for them. They have to really turn the page, get this stuff installed quickly. He is absolutely looking like the Alvin Kamara from a number of years ago. He ran all over the Cowboys, 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown. He is a dynamic running back. He is not just a running back in the way that they use him and the way Derek Carr is able to use him. And then Kubiak is, I think, untapped a lot of that potential that maybe had been there and just been lying dormant for the last season or 2. But is it schematically something that Vic Fangio can change in the next 2 days, really, to make a big difference in getting either pressure or certainly some kind of run stuffing?
I don't think that they'll be able to get those 2 particular issues rectified in time for Sunday, Amy. And this is something that I was talking with Tom about on Birds Insider. Of all the blemishes that they showed on Monday night, I believe that the one that they can kind of fine-tune would be the tackling, because I think that that's something that's obviously fundamentally driven, and they've done it their whole lives. I think you have to take better angles to the football, and you have to rally to the football, especially with someone like Alvin Kamara, who is so elusive in the open field. It almost looks like he's gliding. You have to rally to him. And they also have a pretty good complementary piece in Jamal Williams, who is more of the power runner up the middle. So the Eagles, I think, really need to be able to tackle and wrap up, or it's going to be a really long day. In terms of the run defense, I don't know what the solution is for that, because your personnel kind of is what it is at this time of the year. But I think that they can sort of they can alleviate some of that burden by wrapping up when they have a chance.
Let's talk a little bit about the offense with you, Andrew, because I thought Jalen Hurts overall looked pretty good. I thought the offense was less dynamic than I expected, having what I saw against Green Bay to open the season, and maybe that was something that they were trying to do with no A.J. Brown, and then what the Falcons were giving them. It was surprising to see Dallas Goedert once again a non-factor. Britton Covey heavily involved, just in the way that I think that defensively the Falcons were playing the Eagles. But Jalen running, I thought that was as good as he's looked in. I mean, you're going back to the early last season, because towards the end of last season, I think he really was hampered by an injury. I think that was pretty evident. And we saw his speed on display in training camp, and I thought, wow. When I watched him run several different times against the Falcons on Monday night, it looked like the Jalen Hurts that I had been expecting. I thought he made quick decisions to pull the trigger on the run. I know it opens him up for something, but what did you overall make of how Jalen played against the Falcons?
Well, I thought that he was a little bit more decisive than as the game wore on. But to me, it still seemed like he was bailing out of the pocket too early, Amy, and there were times where it didn't seem like he was reading the full field. But by and large, I thought he made the necessary plays when they needed to be made in terms of running with the football. 85 yards on 13 carries, really gutty runs on certain occasions, and he kind of put the offense on his back in many regards. But to your earlier point, I don't believe that Kellen Moore really called a great game. I was really underwhelmed with his showing on Monday night in terms of just the lack of scheming players open. With Britton Covey, if he's going to get 6 targets, they probably shouldn't be of the horizontal variety. He's somebody that you have to get him the ball in space and allow him to use his short area quickness to pick up yards after the catch. Jahan Dotson, you have to find a way to get him involved. Just 1 target, 1 catch for 6 yards. There has to be a way where you're able to scheme players open, much like he did in week 1. And the most confounding thing for me was the absence of Dallas Goedert in the offense. It seems like every week, and Bray can attest to this because he and I spoke a lot about this last year, we always were expecting the big Dallas Goedert game, and it was setting up for it on Monday night, but it just didn't happen. This week, it absolutely has to happen. I think knowing that you have a full week now to really prepare for it, you're not necessarily having to shoehorn him into the offensive game plan. It should kind of work out more in his favor. Yeah,
because they're already planning. They know there's a good chance, and probably happening. Obviously, A.J. Brown is not going to play. He's been out of practice. As we're speaking with Andrew DiCecco here now on the Comcast Business Hotline. Before we let you go, Andrew, I do want to get you real quick on what's going on with Bryce Huff. Because here's a guy that was brought in to fill the role of Hassan Reddick. You let Hassan Reddick walk. You let him go to the Jets. You thought that was good. That's the better option there. And then you brought in – Bryce Huff was the guy brought in before that, obviously, because you knew that you weren't going to pay Hassan Reddick. The last edge rusher to have a sack was Hassan Reddick, week 14 last year. What is going on with Huff?
Yeah, I got to tell you, the film looked even worse the second time that I saw it. When you're watching him get sort of erased by tight ends, and he was struggling to get off blocks. He was getting washed out in running plays. He just was a non-factor, and he still has yet to compile a statistic since he's been a Philadelphia Eagle. So to me, in training camp even, Amy, you saw spurts, but you didn't see the consistency practice to practice. I think the best he's looked was at the joint practice against New England Patriots, but then there was other times where, whether it be going against certain linemen and one-on-ones that he should, in theory, dominate those reps, he wasn't. So I didn't see the consistency from him, and then it's sort of correlating now over to the early part of the season. I don't know what you do with him at this point because you're obviously paying him to be an every-down player, and he needs to be, and you're not going to certainly pull the plug on him this early and make him a situational rusher. But I'm just not necessarily sure that this defense, he doesn't look very comfortable in this defense. So maybe it's a byproduct of him just needing to get more reps, but from what I've seen right now, he's just really struggling, and it doesn't seem to be playing with a lot of confidence.
No, and that is showing it when he does not register, as you mentioned, anything on the stat sheet. Britton Covey had a tackle. Bryce Huff did not in the game. That is problematic right there. Britton Covey.
That's not good.
No, it's never good for a guy you paid $51 million to replace a double-digit sack guy. I mean, and Josh Sweat's gone 10 games now without a sack. So the edge, they're not getting in anything coming off the edge. The pass rush has been non-existent, and the run decent. Other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? But I digress here. Plenty to work on.
They need Nolan Smith. They need Nolan Smith to come alive a little bit here, too.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought him up because I feel like when we talk about the Georgia guys, he gets a little bit lost in there, and he should not. He was billed as undersized but strong and speedy. And then you see, especially on that last drive where Bijan Robinson was able to get right past him. He's not able to get by anybody. That's going to be a problem going forward because if you can't get by the running back, I know you're not going to get home against any of the front offensive linemen of whomever you're playing, right?
Exactly. So what I saw from Nolan in the summer was he looked exceptional when he was going against backup tackles, but again, with him, it was just pure athleticism. He was able to win his matchups based on athleticism and not necessarily hand usage. He just seems to be lacking in that area, and he's almost looks like someone who's kind of learning on the job a little bit. He's still trying to develop his play strength, and being where he was taken in the draft, well, yeah, he has to contribute right now, and I just don't know how viable of a solution he can be, but. And I know this isn't popular, but I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say to kind of exercise a little bit more patience with younger players. But I have to tell you right now that everything that I've seen from Nolan has been pretty underwhelming. Yeah. But I'm willing to give it a couple more weeks to see if he starts to hit his stride. But right now, the early returns have not been favorable.
All right, Andrew, when is the next time you are on your Birds Insiders? Make sure we give you a good plug.
Tonight at 6, it'll be me, Tom, and myself.
All right, Tom Alvord and Andrew DiCecco coming your way at 6 o'clock tonight on Birds Insiders. Andrew, thanks so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're headed down to the NovaCare shortly to check in on those guys as we hear from the coordinators coming up. Andrew DiCecco, thanks so much for joining us, buddy.
Anytime, Amy. Have a great day.
Good stuff there, Andrew, on the Comcast Business Hotline. And I'm glad he brought up Nolan Smith because I feel like he does – pass is not a word, but he's the forgotten guy. There has been so much looked at with Nakobe Dean. There was so much looked at, obviously, with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis that people forget that Nolan Smith is expected to be that athletic guy that's able to get home and get pressures up there. He's undersized, but he was sold as very strong and quick. And Andrew brought it up, I thought, and hit the nail on the head. Okay. Yeah, you're quick against the backups.
Yeah, you know who he was compared to? You know who his ceiling was supposed to be when he was coming out of the draft?
This is so bad.
Yeah, he's a guy that undersized, can make plays, has the athleticism. He would be like Hassan Reddick type? Is that what they were billing him as?
We've got two people that are supposed to be Hassan Reddick, but we could have just had Hassan Reddick.
No, don't worry. We've got Hassan Reddick at home. Don't worry.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, this one, I mean, I think he gets, right now, he's a little bit more off the hook because Bryce Huff, you gave him $51 million, and it's like, yeah, you brought this guy in to be an immediate impact guy. You've seen him register double-digit sacks, and while it was not at the role that he's playing right now, it was only 40% of the snaps and all the question marks that all offseason we were called crazy for continuing to bring up or coming to the surface at this point. And also, Josh Sweat is in a career contract year where you're like, hey, you're supposed to be this guy. They restructured you when we were having these conversations of, will they trade Reddick? Will they,
at least they have
Sweat
Josh,
will be here.
At least they have Josh Sweat. 10 straight games.
As it turns out, it's not working for either one of them. Nolan Smith kind of gets forgotten in that because of the fact that those two guys are, guys you've seen do it before in certain roles, and you expect them to take that step forward. That's not to excuse Nolan Smith. But I'm sitting here, and I will tell you, honestly, this is where I'm at with the pass rush. When they made the roster move on Monday to elevate, was it Gates and Jenkins?
Yes.
And who they signed? Which one of them did they sign to the active roster? I think Gates to the active roster.
Yes. And then Jenkins
was elevated.
Yes.
Paris Campbell was elevated, and they waived Patrick Johnson.
That was.
When they waived him, I'm sitting there like, whoa.
Slow our roll
That's
here, guys.
some depth at edge.
We don't need anybody else on the offense. What we do need is some depth on the edge.
And
or
I'm
anywhere
sitting
on
here,
the defensive front.
And the fact that was my initial response.
That we were panicking about a practice squad guy let go.
I watched that notification come across my screen. I got done with my softball game. I'm sitting there looking through the phone. I'm like, whoa, hold up, timeout. And I was worried about depth at edge rusher.
From the
I
practice
was worried
squad.
about Patrick Johnson, who I've only seen do it in August.
Right.
Tells you everything I need to know about the way I feel about this pass rush. Because let's be honest, I shouldn't be romanticizing Patrick Johnson.
No one on the practice squad should have a romantic feeling.
Right. It's
That's why they're there. They're the taxi squad. But now he's not even there.
he's a good special teamer. You know,
Now he's not even there.
I shouldn't be having these thoughts. But yet there I am, sitting there
we are.
talking about edge rushers, concerned. That's a problem.
Super.
It's a massive problem.
Yeah, and I think it keeps going back to how do you fix it? It's a short week. What can you do? What is the Band-Aid you can put on right now? I do want to get, before I forget, 11 o'clock hour. The 11 o'clock hour, sponsored by Grungo Law, your law firm when you need help because of an injury. Pray for peace. Prepare for trial. GrungoLaw.com. They have the Saints. Tough place to play. Very loud. We all know those domes are. Superdome, no exception. The Saints are rolling. They're 2-0. They're averaging 45.5 points. Alvin Kamara coming off a 4-touchdown day. And Derek Carr, nearly perfect passer rating, 142 plus. Other than that, no big deal. They need to get some kind of pressure. And I do like that Andrew agreed with me. But the answer is yes. The problem is across the board. Because when you're not getting pressure, whether it's no run defense or anything as far as a pass rush, there's nothing coming up the middle. There's nothing coming off the edges. It puts so much pressure on your linebacking core. And then obviously the secondary. The secondary is better. The linebackers are better than last year, which was an exceptionally low bar. So if you want those to continue to develop those sections, you have to get something up front. And I think that is schematically. And it is hard not to say it's personnel driven because it is, but schematically, you have to work with what you have. And that's what Vic Fangio is going to be tasked with this week. I'm anxious to hear from him coming up at 1:20.
Yeah, very excited. I don't know if that's the word. Excited to hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
He's my favorite to listen to.
Okay. The thing with Fangio is that he tells it like it is, and I am looking forward to his press conference. You will hear it 1:20. He and Kellen Moore will be addressing the media. I'm not sure who's slated to go first, but we will bring you both of those coordinators, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. Fangio tells exactly how like it is. He will call people out. He'll call them on the carpet, and it's one of my favorite things. I am due to get out of here. I want to thank you guys for listening. Obviously, Mike and Bill are coming in at noon. This has been me, Amy Fadul, for the first 2 hours of the Mike Missanelli Show. Thank you to Ray for piloting everything and keeping me on task. I appreciate that as well. Mike Missanelli coming right back. You are listening to 97.5 The Fanatic.
everybody. Yes, it is the afternoon, and this is an abbreviated Mike Missanelli show. If you missed this for the first 2 hours, it's because Bill and I were involved in a kind of a corporate/HR seminar, company-wide seminar, and Amy, of course, filling in beautifully for us today. Apparently, this seminar did not apply to Ray. So I don't know if that means he doesn't count or like what. I don't understand why Ray wasn't involved in this and we were.
Ray was smart enough. He did the one that was a couple weeks ago.
Oh, he did one already.
It.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Ray did one already. All right, so he's off the hook. All right, here's the deal. In the little time that we have, we're going to condense this show. This is like Campbell's tomato soup. There's going to be a lot of content squeezed in a small little can here today. So let's get to the issue, which won't go away. First of all, we're going to have the coordinators on today, somewhere in the 1 o'clock hour. So I don't even know how much commentary we'll have. But this is a big coordinator day because Vic Fangio needs to explain a few things today. And I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say. But let's get into the Nick Sirianni thing because the criticism on the guy has been relentless, not only in this city, but outside this city. And so here's what I'll have to say about it. Now, and the perception is this, that he screwed up. But he didn't really screw up. It's just that the perception is that he screwed up. So what that tells me is this is a man who stands on very thin ice in general as the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Is it unfair? You know, it probably is. But here's the thing, and this is why I keep going back to why they brought him back. The Eagles totally have asked for this scrutiny. They've asked for it by deciding to bring him back, and they probably brought him back for the same reason, for the wrong reasons. I'm sorry. They brought him back for the wrong reasons, which was they still had to pay him out some money, and not bringing him back would have defeated their concept of that they're smarter than everybody else by finding the next new shiny toy. But make no mistake about it, they brought back a guy that this town at this moment really doesn't believe in. I think my partner believes in him, but the town in general doesn't believe in him. And when the town doesn't believe in him, the least little thing that happens is going to raise the questions about whether he's worthy to be the coach. And we're going to have to live in this kind of an era. This is the one reason why I said they needed to cut bait. They needed to start all over because he's never going to get a fair shake. What he did, I agreed with. The call that he did, I agree with. Some football people will agree with it, some don't. But mainstream national pundits are ready to broil him because it's so easy to say you should have run the ball when that pass should have definitely been completed. And if that pass is completed, they win the game. And everybody's saying, wow, what a gutsy call that he allowed Kellen Moore to do there. But instead it went the opposite way. Why did it go the opposite way? Because the majority of people don't believe in Nick Sirianni as a head coach. Bill?
Here we go. I got to be the Nick Sirianni defender here, and it's just because I'm trying to be objective with this. What bothers me the most is, well, let's go back. The reason a lot of people wanted Sirianni gone, including you, was because the narrative was he lost the team. The players didn't want to play for him anymore, right? He doesn't have the respect of the players in that locker room.
Well, I don't know if he did or not.
That's what a lot of people said.
But I look at the result. Forget about what I thought the players were thinking of him. He lost 7 of 8. The team needed a tourniquet. He couldn't find one. That's why I wanted him gone. I didn't even care about what the players thought of him at that point.
All right, so you wanted him gone just because of the 7 of 8, but there were a lot of people who said they lost 7 of 8 because the players tuned him out. They stopped playing for him. What I've seen the first 2 weeks, that's not the case. As much as I'm upset with the way the defense looks, as much as I'm upset that they lost a winnable game against the Falcons, I don't see a team that's not playing for their head coach. So let me get that out of the way first. But what bothers me here is I said this all summer when they did decide to bring him back. Nick Sirianni is in a lose-lose situation. When they win, it's Kellen Moore, it's Vic Fangio, it's Howie Roseman. Sirianni doesn't do anything. When they lose, it's all Sirianni's fault.
But he created that. He created the landscape for it by losing 7 of 8. What do you expect people are going to think?
But let me ask you.
That it's not his fault. He lost 7 of 8.
Saquon Barkley catches that ball. the narrative in this city would have been, the phone calls would have been, how smart is Kellen Moore?
I just said that. But
what a great job by Kellen Moore.
No, not necessarily. Because we all know that the head coach has final say. The head coach has to sanction the play. The head coach is getting blamed for sanctioning the play now.
I think you're being naive right here. Because how many people would have said, Sirianni has no control. He has no say. That was all Kellen Moore. That's all we've heard about this man. And that's what bothers me. He is in a lose-lose situation. No matter what Sirianni does, it's either his fault or he doesn't get the credit.
What was the point of bringing him back? We keep going back to the start. If you knew he was on this kind of a short leash and they lose a game like this, they're 1-1. The sky's not falling. It's ridiculous to have people overreact because they lost that game to the Falcons, as bad a loss as it was. But they're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
But who's they? The fans.
I'm talking about the fans in general, the climate, the landscape here. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how people are reacting. I'm not talking about inside the locker room. I don't know what's going on inside the locker room. I assume nothing's going on inside the locker room. They can't be bailing out on the guy now. I'm talking about the criticism that comes to him the Eagles asked for. They asked for that by bringing him back. So the least little thing that happens, and let's look at this, they lost one game. That's the least little thing. That's the smallest common denominator. And people are bailing. And everybody thinks he's a boob.
You're right, they do. But I don't think that the Eagles, the front office I'm talking about, should make decisions based off of what the fans want. Because the fans wanted Sirianni fired. They should have fired him.
You're missing my point. You have to also, when you run an organization, you also have to think of whether there's going to be any confidence engendered. And when he came into this year, he was positioned as a neutered coach. Let's face it. They said, we're hiring your coordinators. You just kind of float around and be the CEO. They set it up that way.
They did set it up that way. But you're saying he's a neutered coach, but yet he's not neutered when the decision was to go for a pass play on 3rd and 3. That's Sirianni.
I'm just trying to explain why people are coming at him. This is the only thing that we look at right now. People are coming at him. Local media coming at him, national media coming at him. Everything is coming at him because he does not engender confidence. You know how hard of an uphill climb this dude would have now? If they're bailing out after one game, this dude, and I see at least one more loss coming up in the next couple of weeks, right? This dude is going to have to climb Mount Everest to get people to believe in him again.
He is going to have to do that. And you're right. When they hired him again, or not hired him, when they retained him and didn't fire him, you knew this was what was going to happen. But they can't worry about what the fan base is saying.
But it's a negative vibe. You're missing it. It's not the fan base in general. It's the negative vibe that follows the guy. You can't – a negative vibe is no good for any team, even if it doesn't get inside the locker room.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong about the negative vibe. But the guy that a lot of people want is Bill Belichick. Wait till I tell you the story about what Bill Belichick did to the Philadelphia Eagles.
I don't want Bill Belichick. I don't want Bill. I'm not yelling for Bill Belichick here. I'm not even yelling for Sirianni's head. I'm just trying to justify why they're coming at him with slings and arrows, and they lost one game. 610-632-0975. That's how you get in. It's Mike Missanelli Show. Back after this. 12 o'clock hour, Mike Missanelli Show for our first hour. Vacation day almost for Bill and I. Ray had to work 4 hours.
I'm on vacation.
We got a quick show today.
12 o'clock hours brought to us by Service First Heating and Air Conditioning. Get 0% financing for 72 months and a $500 rebate when you purchase a complete heating and cooling system from Service First. Learn more at servicefirsthvac.com. All right, poor Nick. Yeah, listen, I don't get me wrong here. I'm not bringing this up because I'm trying to bury Nick Sirianni. Everybody else is doing it for me. It's like the guys that cover the team are figuring out a way to bury the guy, right? With this decision, I look at stuff that I think is foolish. Like here's a guy who comes out of the blue on this story in The Ringer, who's making the case. His name's Eric Eager. I don't know Eric Eager from Eager Beaver. You know, a football analyst. He's described that. Who's now the vice president of football analytics for the Panthers, the worst franchise in the NFL, wrote about why going for a 3-point lead to a 6-point lead late in the game is the wrong choice. And he goes on to explain, when teams are down 3, they tend to play conservatively for the field goal. Had the Eagles been stopped on 3rd and 4th down, the Falcons would have gotten possession inside their own 10 with under a minute left, needing just a field goal to tie it. Typically, the trailing team in that spot is not playing to score a touchdown. It's playing to get in a field goal range, so it's not as aggressive. Well, if a team is more aggressive, doesn't that make it easier for you to defend them? What makes sense about that? If they're going to be aggressive, they're going to take chances throwing the ball down the field. You're going to flood zones. Are they not more susceptible to an interception in that situation?
You and I are agreement on this, but it has been a lot of places nationally and locally where they're arguing that the team, meaning the Falcons, if they were only down 3, would have played it more conservatively coming up the field to just kick a field goal instead of scoring a touchdown. I agree with you.
What does that mean?
You force a touchdown.
What's the difference? Whether they play conservatively or aggressive? Your defense is still in charge. You have a savvy defensive coordinator. Oh, they're playing conservative? Well, we'll play it this way. Oh, they're playing aggressive? We'll play it this way. What does it have to do with anything? A 6-point lead is safer than a 3-point lead.
And what I hate right now is the over-the-top criticism that is coming from everywhere. Like even Dan Orlovsky is on Get Up this morning saying, I don't trust Nick Sirianni to manage the game. I don't trust him in big situations. Up until this point, and I've said this ad nauseum on this station, Sirianni is usually very good in game. And I still think he made the right decisions in this game.
Is that not an example of how the world is tilted against him? Is that not an example? They're all coming out of the woodwork with one loss.
One loss. This is the 4th time they've led in the last 2 minutes and lost since the beginning of last season.
Yes, but look at the Seattle one where they let Drew Lock drive down the field. Is that on Sirianni or is that on the defense?
I got you, but it's not a one-off for him.
My point is the guy had a weak resume coming into this year after what happened last year, and they have set themselves up for this kind of thing, which is it's happening in the second game of the season. Do you not think it's going to pile on as the games go on?
They have to win one of the next 2. They have to. But Mike,
even if they win one of the next 2, that's not going to do anything for them. They need to win both of them.
Well, if they only win one of the next 2, at least the noise quiets a little. If they go 0-2, the noise is going to be at a fever pitch.
They lose in New Orleans. How's that going to? You think a win it the week after they lose in New Orleans is going to quiet people?
If they're 2-2 at the bye, I think people will be a little calmer. You also got to look at what's going to be happening around that time. Red October for the Phillies will distract. But Mike, I got to ask you your opinion about this before we continue with the Sirianni stuff. There's a lot of people who want Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I want Bill Belichick.
You and I did not watch the Manning cast. I don't watch the Manning cast. I don't find it enjoyable.
Yeah.
But Bill Belichick was on the Manning cast the night of the Eagles game. And he told a story that before Super Bowl 39, and this was a quote from Belichick, that was the Terrell Owens game. T.O. had gotten hurt a couple weeks before. My team doctor said that he talked to, and then he pauses and goes on to say, saw the x-rays, saw T.O.'s doctor, whatever, and said there's no way that this guy's going to be able to play, and if he did, he wouldn't be able to run. How the hell is Bill Belichick getting x-rays, confidential health information about a player on an opposing team?
Well, I'm not sure what point you're making here.
This is crazy.
What is your point?
Why would you admit this?
What does that have to do with Bill Belichick coaching the Eagles?
Well, if you want a
you
guy,
don't want him because he would do something like that.
if you want a guy who cheats,
I want a guy who does something like that.
Okay, you want a guy who's admitting that?
Yeah, well, Bill, he's not a coach now. So
After
he
you
can
win a
say
Super Bowl,
anything he
sure.
wants.
Wait, so you have no problem at all with, first of all,
how did we get
a
how did we
HIPAA violation?
Well, how do we sway off of what we're talking about to get into Bill Belichick?
Because in the YouTube chat, everyone's talking about Belichick. That's what everyone wants.
Okay,
Belichick.
well, do you think people care that he did something like this? What do you think people care about?
Whether or not he gets hired, I don't think they care. But this just brings us back to the Super Bowl, that bad taste we still have in our mouths about Spygate and everything else. Now he's getting secret medical information.
So
he's
what?
reading X-rays of Terrell
I
Owens'
don't
ankle.
understand why is this important to you?
Because I can't stand Belichick, and I don't want him here.
We're talking about Nick Sirianni. You come in with the side door with Belichick here.
Because if you move on from Sirianni, what are you doing?
There's no continuity to this conversation. We're not moving on from Sirianni, and we're not moving on from Sirianni for Belichick.
So Belichick says this during the Eagles game, and we're just supposed to brush it under the rug. We got a short show today, Mike. I got to get it in.
Bill. Time and place.
It doesn't connect. You could have brought that up as a standalone later in the show.
We don't have a later in the show.
Yes, we do. We have plenty of show left.
Anyway, I read this last night. It bothered me. It bothered me.
My God.
He's getting secret X-rayed information about Terrell Owens from T.O.'s doctor. Who's the leak?
We're talking about Nick Sirianni here. Who gives a flip what he's getting for Terrell Owens? What doesn't make any sense.
You're
What's
okay
wrong
with that.
you?
You're okay with it. I went to bed furious last night when I read the article.
I would have an opinion on it if it was like a standalone topic that we were talking about. I don't think that I'm thinking of that right now. We're in the middle of the Sirianni on thin ice conversation.
So it doesn't connect that people want to fire Nick Sirianni and hire Bill Belichick, and I'm telling you, the guy is a damn cheat who shouldn't be trusted.
The hell
but
is
yet
wrong with
we're
you?
going to say it doesn't connect to Nick Sirianni.
First of all, 3 lame brains are out there saying Bill Belichick should succeed Nick Sirianni. It's not even a possibility.
That was all the chatter this offseason, man.
It's not the chatter now. They're not going to hire Bill Belichick and fire Sirianni.
That is a lot. You haven't seen that everywhere? You haven't seen everybody saying they want Bill Belichick?
Yeah, but that's just, you know what that is? That's just nonsense talk. All right, it's just that with nonsense. There's a difference between the wheat and the chaff, right? That's chaff. So I don't understand. Like I don't know.
Anyway, that bothered me when I went to sleep.
Evidently, it
Your
bothered
mind works
you
in a very interesting way.
And the national perspective on Sirianni bothers me as well. That all the people are coming out of the woodwork now to come after him when he made the right decision in that game.
Let me get this straight. You don't want Bill Belichick at any cost. You specifically don't want him because he would stretch the envelope to get information that would help his team win a Super Bowl.
That's not why I specifically wouldn't want him. I wouldn't want him because
it's a HIPAA violation. Like,
I wouldn't want him.
Why is your ass red right now?
I would not want Bill Belichick because it starts with the fact that he hasn't won anything without Tom Brady. I don't think the Patriot way works anymore in today's NFL. And it just goes to show that a lot of the success that this man had throughout his career was stretching
what
was allowed.
Am I in the Twilight Zone here? Is this an episode of the Twilight Zone?
We're both in the Twilight Zone.
Oh, we're both in the Twilight Zone?
Yes.
What? How do we?
Ray, you haven't seen anything.
We're fist deep into Sirianni, and all of a sudden, like out of left field comes this Belichick and T.O. thing.
Wait, both of you are going to sit here and say that you have not seen people calling for Bill Belichick.
What did you say a little while ago? Time and place?
Yeah. I was just I understood at first, like, hey, yeah, Belichick in the Sirianni conversation. Then all of a sudden you're livid about something that happened 2 decades ago.
Because he revealed it, during the game on Monday night.
Again, we can get into that.
My head is spinning like Linda Blair in The Exorcist right now.
Just no pea soup throw up. I don't need it.
610-632-0975. Who is this band, Bill?
Is this Mannequin?
This is Mannequin P from Philly.
Sometimes.
I like her voice.
Yeah, her name is, what is her name? Philly Girl.
I don't know who
Philly
the lead
band.
singer is.
Forget what her name is. But that's Mannequin Pussy.
I think you're allowed to say it. I think you're allowed to say it
as
because
the
they
band, Mannequin Pussy?
Yeah, because it's the band. It's the band.
What about, there's another band that has, it's called Pussy Riot. That was the band that got in trouble in Russia.
Yeah, I've heard them.
You know that?
Were they the ones that they were flashing? Was that them?
I don't know.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know what they did in Russia.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I think they're a Russian band, actually. Anyway.
But we were talking about Sirianni. I do want to ask you.
We're also talking about Bill Belichick. So if you have any thoughts on the T.O. Bill Belichick situation, 610-632-0975.
No, people don't know what you're talking about. He said it on the Manning cast. He acknowledged that he got secret medical information.
Do we have it? Do we have the sound?
I couldn't find the audio online. I couldn't find the audio. But here's my question, because we're talking about Sirianni. If Saquon Barkley catches that ball, do you really think that people in this town would have given any credit to the aggressiveness of Nick Sirianni, or would it have been, wow, Kellen Moore would have play call?
I think Sirianni would have gotten some credit. I really do.
See, but you said earlier he's been neutered as a head coach.
Yeah,
I think that's what most fans
he's
feel.
He's also an offensive guy, and he still has final say. So I think he would have gotten, maybe Kellen Moore would have gotten most of the credit, but maybe, Sirianni would have got some too. But as soon as it didn't happen, and he doubled down on it yesterday, but the knives came out. And my point is the knives are going to come out because he's a 7 of 8 dude.
Yeah, I do have my concerns that you're starting to see reporters who follow the team putting these stories out now about how Sirianni's on the hot seat. And, do they know something?
It's also because he's ridiculous. Talking about Friday Night Lights. It's also because of that.
You got to stay up late Monday nights.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Dun, 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 dun.
Reporters go, all right. No.
As long as the players don't do that. To me, that's all that matters.
You think the players are not doing that?
I think the players
I don't think the players give a crap about their head coach in the NFL. I really don't. They're their own entity. If the coach gives them a plan that wins the game, a game plan that wins the game, then they're there. But they don't play for anybody in the NFL. You think those guys play for their head coach? They play for themselves, man.
I agree with you to an extent, but there's certainly head coaches that they don't play for.
Well, maybe. And this guy is teetering on that because he's an eye roll coach. Let's go to Ray in Blackwood. Ray, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. Ray.
What's up, Mike?
How you doing,
Glad
Ray?
to have you back, buddy.
Thanks,
Glad
pal.
to have you back, man. I missed you.
Thank you.
Listen, I'm not a Sirianni hater. I'm one of them people. I actually like the guy. I think he gets a bad rap. I think he was set up to fail. Nobody talks about, and they're not going to talk about it. He's not going to talk about it. Jalen's not going to talk about 4 offensive coordinators, coaches in the last 5 years. You're talking about 7 of 8 last year. Yeah, that was bad, but we switched defensive coordinator halfway through the season. Nobody talks about that. And I do think the players do like him.
Dude, who changed the coordinator?
Well,
wait, like some.
He did, but I don't believe he did. I don't believe.
Oh, you don't believe he did?
I don't believe he did.
Okay, so
no.
you think it was above him? You think it was Howie and
yes, I do.
Okay, all right.
But I like him, man. I like his passion. He's Italian. He's a little quirky, man, and that's why I think people don't like him. In his press conferences, he's jibber jabbing, but I think his players like him, man, and they do play for him. Like Tomlin out in Pittsburgh. You don't think his players play for him?
Are you comparing Tomlin to Sirianni, who's talking about plants
I'm talking
and
about
Friday Night Lights and
coaches?
Yeah,
no.
I'm telling you, this team isn't playing for him. They're not playing for him. There's nothing that he provides that a player would go, man, I want to go through a wall for this dude.
Well,
Nothing.
listen,
Tomlin's a different situation. You can go through a wall for that guy.
Well, that's what I mean.
You're going through a wall for this guy? Seriously? He's talking about Friday Night Lights?
See, I don't agree with you,
What
Mike.
do you want to do?
all right.
You want to have a new coach in here every 2 years, a new coordinator. We're never going to get continuity.
Ray, he lost 7 of 8 games.
Yeah, well,
Continuity.
there's a lot of reasons behind that.
Oh.
What about all the games he's won, Mike? What about his record?
I'm with you, Ray.
All right, my last frame of reference is he lost 7 of 8.
Yeah, but listen, I'm with
That,
Ray.
to me, is more telling than winning.
But
when
it's
you
not,
can't
Mike.
stop losing with a good team that was 10-1.
They weren't a good team.
But they were 10-1.
Their defense was bad, man. This is the problem. Their defense was so
They
bad
were
last year.
10-1. No matter how you want to slice it, they won 10 of their first 11 games.
And who was the head coach?
But
Who
that
was the
same
head coach?
then dropped the ball.
Okay, it happens.
It happens?
Listen.
Where does it happen when a team starts off 10-1 and lose 7 of the last 8?
Because they should have never won 10 of 11 to start the season.
God.
They weren't good enough to win 10 of 11 games. They weren't.
But they did.
I get
it. Doesn't matter that they weren't good enough. They did. And then he couldn't stop bleeding.
He couldn't stop bleeding when you had a team that didn't have enough personnel on defense, who had a new defensive coordinator where they had panicked. Not saying it was the right decision, but let's be honest here. Wouldn't have made a difference if you kept Desai. Didn't matter who the defensive coordinator was. The personnel stunk. They were coming off of a Super Bowl that they lost, which you already know is hard to get back to a Super Bowl. Losing both coordinators has only happened twice before. You're acting as if what Sirianni did last season makes him a complete joke.
This is for me, okay? This is only my opinion. If you lose 7 of 8, you're out, okay? Now, they brought him back. I'm willing to accept it. But now what I'm dealing with is all this, the piling on that's going on, and it was predictable that when you bring a guy back who lost 7 of 8, the least little thing, like one loss, is going to get people into the shallow pool. You know, this city is hard on managers and coaches, but once you get into that pool with this fan base, there's no coming back from it. And if you think that's irrelevant, well, you're a stronger man than me, because that matters. Because they don't believe if the fan base doesn't believe in the guy, that permeates all the way down the chain.
But you said to that caller, these players don't want to run through a wall for
They don't
Nick
want to run
Sirianni.
through a wall. Of course they don't. You're going to run through a wall for a guy who talks like that?
Because
stop it.
Listen, you're listening to
High school guys would walk through a wall for this guy.
You are listening to press conferences, which he's terrible at. I agree.
You don't think they're
But
seeing
this
the same
guy,
press conferences?
He
the
protects his
players?
players, man. Last season, when A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts ad-libbed at the end of the game and threw that interception, who made himself look like an absolute clown?
And you saw what the reaction was to that. No. That we carved that out on our own. They had so much respect for him that they admitted they carved it out on their own.
A.J. Brown admitted it after the fact after he refused to talk to the media. And what did he say? Nick Sirianni is my guy. He made himself look bad to protect us. But you're going to say, because you don't like him at press conferences, that these players wouldn't run through a wall for
I'm telling you,
him.
this guy is not the type of guy that players are running through a wall for. Okay?
But you're basing that off of your opinion of his press
conferences. That doesn't happen in the NFL in general. But certainly it's not going to happen here with this guy. Let's go to Simon in Center City. Simon, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. Simon.
You know, there is a linkage between Sirianni and Belichick. Sirianni does like those hoodies. He looks good in those hoodies. He does like to wear, but I think he wears them at the press conferences. But I think he's worn them on the field.
Where's he wearing hoodies?
Really
I've never seen him wear hoodies.
He rocks the hoodie sometimes at the pressers. He's a big visor guy, too, like Dougie P.
You know who I love? I love Bill Cowher. I just love him. I just think, why can't we get Bill Cowher? You know?
What is he, like 80? How old is Bill Cowher now?
Bill Cowher.
Is this a joke call? A lot of these guys.
Oh, he's only 67. I thought he was older than that.
Trump's 78, right, or whatever the hell he is. You know, who the hell knows? But you know what's something? What's something is...
Oh, we lost him. But Cowher hasn't coached since 06. Cowher hasn't coached in 18 years.
Yeah, we don't need Bill Cowher. All right? That's one thing you don't need. I'm not even saying you need to replace Sirianni, because that's stupid. At this point, replacing him would be stupid. At the end of the year, we'll check back in on it. What I'm saying to you is he set himself up for this kind of thing. What he did was not egregious. In fact, I liked it. But somehow it has come off as egregious and foolish because this guy's a boob. Now, why? Because he lost 7 of 8. That's why.
I get it. Last season, the way it ended was bad, but I don't think you should put all of the blame on Sirianni for the way the season went last year.
I'm not.
I think they lacked personnel. They had a bad offensive coordinator, bad defensive coordinators. They were coming off of a Super Bowl loss.
Sometimes you just need a different look. Sometimes you can't clean up losing 7 of 8. That's my whole point. Whether you want to go, well, but
they were 1 year removed from a Super Bowl, man.
Before he went to a Super Bowl.
Yes, exactly.
But you can't erase 7 of 8. That's a stank that you can't. That's BO in a car that you can't get rid of, like Seinfeld.
Sometimes you need continuity, man. You can't just keep turning over coaches and thinking that that's going to solve the answers. It's not going to happen. You had a guy who just brought the team to a Super Bowl a year earlier that was a half a football away from being the best season in franchise history. You don't just throw it all out.
They were so enamored with him that they took weeks to confirm that he was coming back. They're so enamored with the guy. They stood by him so staunchly that it took them 3 weeks to say, well, you know what? Yeah, he's coming back.
They never said that.
That's what I mean.
They never came out. No, the reason they never came out and said he's coming back is the way they tried to play it, whether this is accurate or not, but the way they tried to play it was, of course we never considered moving on. Like, we don't even need to announce he's coming back because why would we move on from a guy who just went to a Super Bowl a year ago?
And you thought that was what they really thought?
I don't think there was
that was their motive?
I don't think there was a chance.
Or were they looking around saying, let's discuss this because if we get rid of him, we're going to look foolish because 2 years ago we trumpeted to the world that we found the next Andy Reid.
I don't think it would have made them look foolish. I think that...
Of course it would have made them look foolish. He was the shiny toy they buffed off. This guy came out of nowhere. They hired him.
And he brought him to a Super Bowl.
And his press conference was ridiculous. And they hired him. Like 2 years ago, say, well, never mind. We weren't that smart after all. You think that Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie were going to admit that they're not that smart after all?
So you think the only reason they kept Sirianni is because they didn't want to admit that he wasn't a good coach?
A couple years on a contract. They said, what do we have to let's ride it out for 1 more year. But the fact that they weren't sold on him tells you that they hired his staff. And they said, guess what? You're removed from the day-to-day. Come on. What are we talking about here? Brian in media, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. Brian.
Hey, Mike.
What's up,
Brian?
Brian?
Thanks for taking my call.
How you doing?
Good. A few things. On the Sirianni front, I think you're right, Mike, that the organization set us all up for this by bringing him back. Mm-hmm. But, 2 things can be true. That can be true, and maybe he still has a good season here.
Yes. Like I said, I'm not here today firing Nick Sirianni. I'm saying he's got a really big uphill climb now that he can still. But it's difficult when the whole tenor is against them. It's difficult to win, and you got to go on a major winning streak and establish yourself as one of the best teams in this league to get this stink off you that people are throwing on you.
But who's throwing the stink, Mike? If fans or players, like you said, players aren't going to run through a wall for anyone in the NFL.
Players hear the stink. Players know what's up. They hear the criticism that their coach is getting.
Yeah, I hear you. But I just don't want to quit after 2 games.
Listen, you and I are in agreement when it comes to that. This whole season has to play out. I'm just commenting right now. The issue is, man, people are coming at him hard. And I agree with his decision. And people are still coming at him hard. Why? Because he stands on thin ice as a coach in this league right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't blame the play call, the Saquon drop, whatever. But anyhow, 2 other quick things, Mike.
Yeah.
1, I hope your contract has hazard pay dealing with Bill's ADHD.
What do I get to stray for? What are you coming after me for, Brian?
Bill's ADHD.
Sorry, Bill.
What are you coming after me for? If anyone needs hazard pay, it's me, not Mike.
ever.
Bill does need hazard pay working with me. I agree. But I love when Bill does that because it gives us material.
Yeah, I get to be the run of the joke.
Tremendous material. The last thing with the hangman thing was that was outstanding.
Yeah.
Like, it's like 10 seconds. It was 10 seconds after we've said.
But, yeah, it was. It was.
By the way, there's a major Fan Fest announcement coming tomorrow.
Today,
it's today. Oh, it's today.
Today at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Big Fan Fest announcement with Tyrone and Ricky.
I don't know what it is.
What could it be?
And I texted Tyrone and said, hey, what's the announcement? He said, my show doesn't have any leaks. Tune in at 5 o'clock.
Well, there you go.
So, I'm going to...
Nobody told me anything.
We don't know anything.
The entire show. All 4 hours
Major
I've been sitting here.
So it must be like, I don't know, some major band.
I believe...
REO Speedwagon.
Yeah, I believe...
They just broke up, but they're going to Oasis might be.
Oh,
It might be Oasis.
That would be awesome. What about Manic and Pussy could come? They're a Philly band.
They should get Manic and Pussy out there.
Philly band? It would be easy for them to get there.
Why wouldn't they? There's another band called Low Cut Connie. The War on Drugs played last night at the War on Drugs Philly-oriented band.
Get on this, Mike. Make it happen.
Go. Oh, man, Manic and Pussy would have been great.
Sebastian Maniscalco's in town, too, the night before Fan Fest. Maybe
Are we trying to get him on the air?
We're supposed to be.
Sebastian?
I'm trying. I've been talking to to Vito. What's Vito's title?
Broadcast coordinator.
Been talking to Vito, trying to get my man Sebastian on, but we'll see.
We found the audio, the Belichick audio that drove Bill nuts. So as we go into a break, let's drive Bill nuts again with Billy B.
That was the Terrell Owens game. We went into the game. T.O. had gotten hurt a couple weeks before, and my team doctor, said that he saw the X-rays, saw his doctor, whatever, and said there's no way that this guy is going to be able to play, and if he did, he wouldn't be able to run. So, all right. So otherwise, we would have doubled the hell out of T.O., but he wasn't going to play, and he wasn't going to do anything. So first third down, they put him in a slot there. We put Blue Gay on him. Blue was, good corner. He's 185 pounds, like 5'11", and T.O. just stiff-armed him, knocked him right down, almost broke his back. And I looked over at the doctor. I'm like, can't run. Like, this guy looks like the best player on the field. So he goes 9 for 122 against us. We had to change the game plan after the first third down. But, he was a man on a mission.
Okay, so you don't like that because our coach who was able to worm HIPAA information out of another doctor to benefit his team. You don't like that?
100% hate it. And the fact that you're going to admit it.
Why?
His team doctor saw the X-rays of Terrell Owens?
Well, it's kind of a HIPAA violation, isn't it?
Well, the reason I hate it is because if you're doing that, if you're violating HIPAA, that's just scratching the surface of what Bill Belichick did before that Super Bowl. We never saw the Spygate films. We never saw any of that
Let me ask you a question. Do you think Patriots fans gave a crap that he pushed the envelope and cheated? You really think that the hometown fan base would care that to get information to give his team an advantage, they would be upset with that?
No, but when you have a guy like Belichick who hasn't won anything without Brady, who's admitting on air during the Monday Night Football game that he cheated by stealing X-rays.
I don't know why.
I don't need him here.
I see why it would bug you here now. But if he was the Eagle coach, you think the fan base would care that he got information like that?
Yes, because it's going to the point of the fact that he was successful because he was breaking the rules.
It shows me a guy
and if he can't
who would
break
try
the
to
rules,
win at any cost. I want a coach that would try to win at any cost.
I agree, but when he's under scrutiny, when they can't do the Spygate, when he doesn't have Tom Brady, when he can't get medical information.
This is just hate for
when
Belichick,
they don't do the deflate gate.
Not even making any sense.
Can they win? I don't want him here.
Oh, my God.
I don't want him here. I don't think he wins.
Oh, he's not going to come here anyway.
So much good.
Don't worry about it.
We all fertilize.
Let that guy. That guy, he doesn't commit HIPAA violations, but he talks about fertilizer.
I don't want to retread.
6-3-10 Friday Night Lights.
I don't want to retread.
And how I stayed up late to watch Monday Night Football. 610-6, and my brother Jay. And Billy Beans, who I played with in 8th grade. The Mike Missanelli Show continues. This is a man who stands on very thin ice in general as the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Is it unfair?
Mike and Bill have been pleading their cases.
Not bringing it back would have defeated their concept of that they're smarter than everybody else by finding the next new shiny toy. And when the town doesn't believe in him, the least little thing that happens is going to raise the questions about whether he's worthy to be the coach. This is the one reason why I said they needed to cut bait. They needed to start all over because he's never going to get a fair shake. What he did, I agreed with.
Nick Sirianni is in a lose-lose situation. When they win, it's Kellen Moore, it's Vic Fangio, it's Howie Roseman. Sirianni doesn't do anything. When they lose, it's all Sirianni's fault.
The Mike Missanelli Show Holding Court is brought to you by Grunko Law, your law firm when you need help because of an injury. We treat every case like it's Dallas Week. Pray for peace, prepare for trial. Now back to Mike Missanelli on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
It's the 1 o'clock hour of the Mike Missanelli Show. Just heard us holding court on Nick Sirianni. Brought to you by Ferguson HVAC Line Conklin. The 1 o'clock hour is attention HVAC contractors for equipment, parts, and supplies for every heating and cooling job. Visit one of Ferguson's counter locations in Ben Salem, King of Prussia, Pensacola, and Westchester. Abbreviated show today because we had to attend a seminar, a corporate seminar for the first 2 hours. Amy Fadul filling in for us adequately enough and excitingly enough. Hope you enjoyed Amy. We have our coordinators coming up. Now, we don't know which one is coming up first, but God, I hope it's Vic Fangio because he's got a lot to answer for with this defense that's ranked, 32nd? Oh, my God.
They're in the bottom
can't stop
of a lot
the
of
run. They're in the bottom of the league right now. So he's going to he's going to be quizzed on, listen, you're not getting any production rushing a passer. Your tackles are not doing the job. Your defense is set up for your tackles to do the job to stop the run. So what are you going to do about it? What do you have to change up? That's going to be a pertinent question for Fangio today, and hopefully he comes on first so we have a chance to comment on it afterwards.
And he's usually pretty honest, Fangio. He hasn't held back his words. But the issue may be, as much as we want to see them stop the run, philosophically, they may not mind because they like the bend but don't break style of defense to make them drive down the field on these long sustained drives. They may not mind the fact that teams have to go on these methodical long drives. But the issue is they're giving up. I think they gave up 11 rushing plays of 10 yards or more so far this season, which is a lot. That's really like bottom of the league.
Meanwhile, your Phillies, folks, nobody's alarmed anymore. They lost 2 or 3 of the Brewers. We're not hearing the alarm. The Sirianni talk has drowned out the noise of the Phillies losing 2 or 3 of the Diamondbacks. So, but they're still in the magic number swimming pool. The Phillies. It's just they're just waiting. It's just a matter of time. So there's nothing to be alarmed about. They're going to get to number 1 or number 2 seed. And tonight, a big 4-game series at Citi Field, and the Phillies are taking the wrappers off Taijuan Walker to come back in as a starter the first game on his old mound. What do you think of that, Bill?
I'm scared. I'm very scared. I don't want to have to wait another day for them to clinch a playoff spot.
Phillies, surprisingly, the Mets are only minus 135 at home with Taijuan Walker going for the Phillies against Luis Severino, who's pitched very well. I mean, that line almost begs me to take the Phillies. That's a Phillies line. Do I have enough guts to put cashola on Taijuan Walker tonight?
I wouldn't call it guts. I would call it stupidity.
I think I'm going to put a couple shekels on T-Dub.
I can't imagine, man. I mean, look, he did have a decent outing coming out of the pen the other day.
Uh-huh.
But what was it? How many starts in a row, Ray?
They say they changed it all up now. You see this?
Well,
his routine, how he prepared in the bullpen is now he's going to take that to preparing to start the game.
And that may be the answer. Ray, is Mike crazy here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not putting any of my hard-earned money on a Taijuan Walker start.
Minus 135.
Hard-earned?
Dude, for $20.
Hard-earned.
135.
You always do these $20 bets.
Come on, Ray. You can afford 20. Plus 115 the Phillies are tonight.
See, I think I would
throw to 20 on the Phillies.
I'd be more comfortable taking the over, I think. Over 8 runs.
Play sucker bets like that. Why would you play sucker bets?
Because if the Phillies win tonight, it's a 10-9
why don't you
win.
spin a wheel on the Wildwood Boardwalk and put a quarter on pop?
I used to love those.
I would rather shoot hoops down the Wildwood Boardwalk.
Step right up.
Then bet on Taiwo
Here's
Walker.
25 cents. Put it on Hun. Come on, man.
On Hun. What, the wheel?
yeah.
Yeah, put it on
That's
this.
what you're doing with this over-under with our runs.
Put it on the diamond.
Mom, Pop, Hun, Son.
Yes, and you can win the candy.
Yes.
I used to love the Wildwood Boardwalk.
But anyway, the Sirianni thing. Back to the Sirianni thing. Let me ask you this, and I know you like him. Does he honestly come off to you as a quote-unquote professional NFL coach?
He's different than what you expect with an NFL
What
coach.
vibe do you get from him? Do you get the vibe of, man, that guy's a professional coach in charge?
I get a little bit of a goofy vibe from him. But at the same time, and I said this when he was hired, if he succeeds, people will love this man because he is a genuine version of himself. This is just who the guy is. And I think what players in the NFL want more than anything from their head coach is authenticity. They don't want you to be somebody you're not. And this is who the guy is.
But it's not authenticity. It's not real talk that he gives them. He gives them parables and stuff. Like he doesn't. It's not real, honest talk. It's like that fake motivational thing.
So you think it's fake?
It is. It's just like it's not real talk. It's like I don't know.
It worked 2 years ago.
It's hard to explain.
But it worked 2 years ago.
I don't know if it worked 2 years ago or whether it was just the novelty of it and they had a team that played together. And I don't know. I've seen more bad than good, to be honest with you.
That's impossible. How can you say you've seen more bad than good? Other than the 6 of 7 they lost down the stretch last year, a majority of his time here has been good.
Other than that.
Yeah, but that's not a majority of his time, what I'm saying. You're saying you've seen more bad than good. There's been a lot more good than bad. There's a reason why they've been to the playoffs all 3 years.
One other coach in this town pulled something like that off, and it was Rich Kotite. And he was a boob of the highest magnitude.
He was a boob. I'll give you that.
And he's the only coach that could blow a season the way Sirianni's team did.
I know how bad it looked down the stretch, and I hate that we're even revisiting what happened last year, but we have to because now everything gets magnified with the 1-1 start. I don't think you could put all of that on Sirianni. I know that he's going to take a lot of the blame because he's the head coach.
Whether you do or not, Bill, it's still it's there. Whether you want to put it on him or not, the perception that he's a boob is still there right now.
But from whom?
Well, does it matter?
Yes, because
it does.
You're looking at it from a fan. You're not a fan, but the fan perspective. As long as the players don't look at Sirianni as a boob,
I don't know what they look at. I gotta be honest with you. If I'm a player, how do I look at that guy? I don't know. I guess I gotta put the pads on and go into the locker room. But I gotta think that they're not going home saying, "Man, that guy really inspired me today." I don't know if they are or not. Let's take a break.
But I think, before we hit the break.
Hold on to that thought.
All right. We'll do it after this.
Because I'm sure people are going to be,
sitting on the edge of their seat.
Bated breath hearing what you had to say about this.
And we have the coordinators coming up.
Correct. 610-632-0975. We'll also get into some texts as well. If you want to text, hit that number, 610-632-0975. Mike Missanelli Show back after this. Fangio is the first coordinator up, so let's get right to it. Vic.
Phillies, they just need to get 2 out of the 4.
Yeah.
Then we'll be fine.
All right. Vic, in terms of your nickel personnel and teams running at you with a light box, what can be done to offset what has clearly been a problem?
Yeah, it's been, we've obviously played a lot of nickel these first 2 games because the teams are playing a lot of 3 wides against us. So, most teams' normal reaction is to play a good bit of nickel. We just have to do a better job of coaching the guys on the technique and do the job better. I just haven't done a good enough job of getting that done.
With Zach Bond being new inside, deals with him handling cut blocks, is there ways that you can schematically support him, or is it something he just has to be?
Yeah, it was the first time he was exposed to cut blocking, and he learned a valuable lesson, and I think he's going to be better prepared for it now. But, yeah, there's some teams that will climb and cut, some teams don't. That's the first time he's seen it. He needs to react better to it, but we need to get him ready for it, too.
Some of those struggles, is Devin any closer to getting on the field, and if not, what are some things he has to do to put himself in position?
Yeah, he's practicing and staying attentive and ready to roll. Special teams plays a part of it. Yeah, he's ready and available.
Do you feel like you've reached a point, obviously two teams have gouged you on the run, problem with passers. Do you feel like you've reached a point where changes need to be made? I know it's early.
Not wholesale changes, no. We need to do a better job with me at the lead of preparing the guys to play with better technique and better discipline.
With that said, do you think you have the talent up front to get that done?
Yes.
What makes you convinced that you do?
Because I've seen these guys play, and I believe we do.
Vic, I wanted to ask you specifically about the 3 Georgia guys, Jalen, Jordan, and Nolan. We kind of look at them together because they're all first-round picks from the same school. They're friends. That group, their production hasn't been, I assume, what they were hoping for, what you were hoping for. What have you seen from those 3 guys as they kind of work through your scheme? And
yeah, I think when you talk production, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking sacks and pressures and stuff. And until we do a better job of playing the run, those aren't coming. That's for sure. And we all have to do a better job, starting with me, of playing the run better.
With Huff, is he going to remain your starter?
Who's that?
Huff?
Yeah, he's still going to be the starter, but we're mixing those guys in, as I know you know, and we'll continue to do that.
What have you seen out of him to this point? What's your evaluation?
He's still learning how to play, the total game and not just rush situations, but he's working hard at it, and we're going to stick with him.
And later on, other stretch runs, I think, to the out, try to get you outside and flow into the ball and then cut back.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see some similarities with the Saints in that regard? At the way
yeah, I mean, the Saints definitely have that run in their repertoire. They've run it a few times this year, and probably after watching our game, they may want to run it some more.
Vic, why do you frame it that the sacks and pressures are dependent upon stopping the run?
Well, if you don't stop the run, you're not going to get in the obvious pass. And, the team we're playing this week, they either run it or max protect, play action, run boots. They're doing a great job offensively, which makes it hard.
Vic, from your perspective, what kind of happened on the last drive?
It started off as what you think as a 2-minute drive, but within 2 plays, it really wasn't 2 minute anymore. And, we gave up the big one on the sideline there on the second play. And after that, it became, they're in the red zone and they got their time and their set of downs to do it. Again, we just need to coach it better, starting with me, to get them to do it better.
What was Cooper DeJean? He only played 1 snap
Mhm.
on Monday night. What's kind of going on there? What does he need to do to?
Yeah, right now he's the backup nickel. We're trying to focus him on the nickel position. For the first week, he was starting in dime as the dime DB. We've made the decision to We feel like it's better, so he was having to learn the dime and be the backup nickel. And with all the time he's lost, we're going to focus him at nickel right now and
Dick,
see if he can make good enough progress there.
Vic, how would you evaluate Nolan Smith through 2 games?
Good. I think Nolan's come a ways, since his rookie year. I think he's playing better on the edge than he was last year.
You said in training camp about blitzing, you want to blitz when you want to, not when you have to. The heavy blitz that came with the touchdown that Cousins had, did you feel at that point you were blitzing because you had to? And, where do you feel that,
It was both. Felt it was a good time and felt 50% thought it was a good time, 50% kind of felt like we had to.
Vic, you mentioned Zach Bond never being exposed to cut blocks. You mentioned how Bryce Huff is still learning your scheme. Cooper DeJean's another young guy that's trying to get in the field. Quignon's a rookie. You have a lot of young players. Is the personnel as constructed on defense tilted way too young or inexperienced for you to function at a high level?
Yeah, I don't think it's as cut and dry as that. You can be young and still play good, mentally and physically. There's been a lot of guys that do that. Are we still in the process of learning how to do everything? Probably. Doing it at a high level of proficiency, especially when the game's on the line. But yeah, maybe.
Sort of along those lines. For a couple months, is this where you kind of feel like you were going to be at this point, or are you behind?
No, obviously the run defense, particularly this past game, was nowhere near good enough, and I thought we could do that better.
In light of Jalen Carter getting disciplined for the beginning of that game, is he doing the things necessary that you're looking for? Kind of where do you stand with him?
Yeah, he had the hiccups last week during the week, which caused that. But overall, he is. But like a lot of us, starting with the coaches, he can do better.
Quinn goes pretty hard on himself on that last drive, saying he needs to get better depth in some of the coverage and play with better leverage. How do you view that, and how is his progress coming along?
I think his progress is good. I think he's doing a good job as a rookie corner. He alluded to that play. But overall, he's doing a good job and very pleased with him.
Considering the pressure that's coming from just the front itself, do you feel like you're at the point in the defense where you're comfortable blitzing when you want to, or do you feel like you have to stimulate more?
Yeah, I do. The one thing we have done decently the first 2 weeks is third down, and we've done it without much pressure. And so I think that, it's there when we need it.
Say
that again.
We'll get you both. Go ahead.
Derek Carr has had a ton of success against you. I think he's 6-2 with 12 TDs in those games. Why and how is he? You looked at him film this week. Is he playing better than he's ever played?
Yeah, I think this offense really suits him. He's always been one of the best talented passers in the league. He throws it short, intermediate, and deep very, very well. Throws a great deep ball. They're max protecting a lot, giving him time. They're running boots. They got the running game going. I think this offense and him is a really good marriage.
What are some of the keys to unlocking the stunts up front?
Unlocking the stunts?
Stunts, yeah. Making them more effective.
It's dependent upon what they're doing. We've run some stunts, and moved people in an effort at times to help with the run. And sometimes it helps you and sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of like pressuring. You want to stunt when you want to and not because you feel you got to do something different to help you with the run.
Kellen, too.
Thanks. All right, thank you, guys.
All right, that was Vic Fangio. Very generic. Coach it better to get them to do it better. Technique, not scheme. All those things were thrown in. So he's not going to tell you if he's going to change things up.
Yeah, that was the first time, though, that we've heard Vic Fangio do that much coach speak in a press conference.
Yeah.
We got nothing out of him.
All right, it's time for the offensive coordinator. There's Kellen Moore.
Kellen, what was kind of your thought process on the third down call, passing in that situation versus just trying to run clock?
Yeah, obviously a decision factor on that play, a big moment in the game. Ran the first two plays, obviously felt like we were gaining a few yards. Second down play, they had a lot in the box. There was a lot of people in there. Saquon was able to avoid a few of them and get a couple yards out of it, but felt like we had a play that was set up that had a potential opportunity to finish the game off. Obviously, there's risk associated with that play, like any play. Unfortunately, didn't turn out the way we had hoped. But those are situations where we're constantly having conversations about, talking about how best to handle those situations. And felt like obviously we missed the opportunity.
When you have a play call like that, when there's beyond just the play call itself, and there's a bigger picture kind of decision being made in terms of game strategy, how does that work between you and Nick in deciding essentially what kind of play you want to call and then the actual play call that you make?
Yeah, we do a lot of the work throughout the week, as we're building the game plan, just spending time on all the different situational calls because, like you said, there's playing the play and then there's playing the situation. And so we go through as many different situations throughout the week just to talk through, okay, what's our call in this situation? What's our call in this situation? There is an element of how the game plays out at the same time. But, obviously it was a critical moment. Obviously you can run the football there or you can try and end it. We're close and we missed the opportunity.
How did that then apply to the fourth down call as far as kicking the field goal as opposed to going for it?
Yeah, obviously we just talked about handling the third down and, obviously we talked through all these scenarios, ultimately decided to kick it to put ourselves up 6 points so they could not tie it with a field goal and had to go score a touchdown.
On the opening drive, 3rd and 9 draw, is that Jalen calling his own number there?
It's part of a package of plays, and obviously we have a few tools in that package, and obviously it didn't work out the way we had hoped, but certainly we like having the ability to play those as much of a neutral down as possible in third downs, and the frustrating ones are those ones when the run is not successful on third down and you're punting and not putting yourself in position to play another down. So all calculated.
On those ineligible men downfield penalties on the RPOs, how do you eliminate those?
Yeah, I think we had some really, really good discussions just because it's been a really successful component for us, and so we don't want to lose that element of our offense. There's part technique, part scheme. There's really a combination of that, and so we've had some really, really good discussions. We don't want to lose that aspect of it, but how we can, the timing of everything and when to make those decisions, and when to call those plays. I think all have critical moments, and so we had some really fun discussions about this that I think will help us moving forward.
What did you make of Britton Covey's efficiency on Monday night?
Yeah, I think it was awesome. Great example of a guy who's, hops in there late in the week and is ready to roll. And that's what happens in NFL seasons. Guys like Covey, they're ready and they're available and they never know when they're going to have to hop out there. And he jumped out there and handled it really, really well, converted some stuff, gave us some nice run after catch, and a lot of positives.
On the interception, where would you like, on the interception, what would you like Jalen to do in that spot?
Yeah, obviously in the interceptions, those are challenging moments, and so we took a chance, obviously, with that opportunity, and didn't turn out. Obviously, a few seconds, we're below the 30-second threshold. We have a timeout. Those are big moments where we were close. Felt like he gave Smitty a chance, and thought the safety made an incredible play. Being a post safety and playing over the top of a single receiver, I thought he made an incredible play, and unfortunate for us.
How deep were you into the game plan when AJ went down? Obviously, it was Friday, and how did you adjust at that point?
Yeah, I think the beauty of our group is they spend a lot of time talking contingencies. I think that receiver room, you don't go into that and just everyone says, hey, I'm the X, and ignore everything else. I think our group is a big picture viewpoint, which is excellent, that those guys, when we have to make those adjustments, whether it be, AJ during the week, sometimes it happens during the game, a guy pops, goes out for a play, and you got to be able to adjust rather quickly. And so I thought our guys did an excellent job of it. Obviously, the game plan, there's a healthy bulk of it in at that point, but our guys were able to adjust really well.
And to follow on that, a lot of the passes towards the end of the game, a lot of them were near the sticks or shorter. Do you feel like without AJ, you still have the ability to go further downfield? How do you adapt to that?
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, I think we still have guys who can separate and give us some vertical components to our offense. Obviously, something that we just got to keep aware of. How can we continue to find those opportunities? I think a big thing around the NFL right now is just trying to find explosive plays. I think obviously the numbers are all down. We're trying to find a defense. They're doing an excellent job, and we just got to keep finding them, not necessarily just on third down, but first and second down as well.
Where do you think Jahan is in terms of learning the offense and being able to do everything?
Yeah, he's done an excellent job. I thought he ran some really good routes. The way progressions work and the way the defenses play, sometimes the ball doesn't go a particular guy's way, and that's for us just to continue to evolve and, how can we put guys in different positions and utilize those different touches and opportunities. But he's done a really, really good job to hop in here and be able to handle the volume that he's handled.
There seem to be times when Jalen might leave the pocket a little more quickly than maybe you'd like to see. I mean, do you see that? I know it's a tough position to play, obviously, quarterback, but would you like to see him maybe climb the pocket a little more or be a little longer in the pocket to look for a read?
I think there's definitely a balancing act of that. I think, hanging in there for progressions and while him still using, what's a tremendous advantage, which is his athletic ability. I think he had one really good example, one where in the game where he stepped up in the pocket and really kept himself alive as a passer and ended up running through an interior gap. And I thought that was a big time play for him because obviously, a lot of quarterbacks are going to bail, from an outside perspective. For him to step up there and make the yardage that he gained on that run, I thought that was a really, really cool example of him just continuing to grow and develop.
When you look at the 9.5-minute drive you guys had, into the fourth quarter, with Jalen and Saquon kind of running in tandem, so to speak. What was so great about that drive, and how can that help you guys moving forward, especially against, a team like the Saints, which is dangerous on offense when they have the ball?
No doubt. Grinding out some drives, you got to do that sometimes. You got to go the long way. We all are striving for those explosives, whether it be a run and a pass. You can make the big plays, but there comes a time and place where maybe a defense is going to test your patience, and you got to be able to grind it out. And I think it's a testament because all 11 got to be on the same page. It's a long drive. Every single play counts. Sometimes when you're in those 5-6, and you're kind of gaining those yards. Had a couple third down runs in there that Jalen did an excellent job with, and so a lot of positives on some of those longer yardage drives.
And, in your career, there's been stops where you go for it on fourth a lot. I'm just curious from your perspective, how do you look, what is your past in analytics and your conversation with Nick and this organization? How is that conversation fused?
Yeah, this is an awesome process as far as just, really spend a lot of time and investing in it during the week as far as just teaming up on it, making sure we have the decision aspect of it, and then also the play call associated with it. And so giving ourselves the best opportunity. Obviously, on my side of it, I'm trying to do the best job I can to give us the play call that gives us the best chance to convert a particular fourth down or even a third down. And so we're all teaming up on this thing. Those decisions in games obviously go really, really fast. You got to make a decision in a few seconds, and you got to go. And so we trust as much as we can what we've done during the week, while knowing there is an element, in game where you have to make adjustments based off many circumstances.
Is there any concern about Saquon's workload? I think he leads the league in touches after 2 weeks. Is there? I know it's not.
No, I think that's definitely fair. I think Saquon will be he wants the rock, and and he's done a phenomenal job. Obviously, from a longevity standpoint, as the season progresses, we got to be aware of it. We certainly recognize that and understand that aspect of it, and so we got to do, at times a better job of that as the game goes on, and especially when you look at it more from a week to week perspective.
Last one.
What stands out about the Saints on film?
Really sound football team. They do an excellent job. You can tell it's really tied together, all the way from the front end to the back end. They have great vision on the quarterback and zones, and man, they're really aggressive at the DB position. They got great packages. Dennis has always been one of the premier defense coordinators in this league as far as just challenging you, stressing you throughout the week, and so it'll be a big challenge. You add the noise to it, and it'll be a fun atmosphere.
Just wanted to ask one follow about Saquon. He had that sequence early in the first quarter where he gets 39 yards, 4 carries.
Yeah.
Then he comes down. What goes into the thought process there? You got a hot runner and he comes out.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, guys can't go 20 straight plays with that type of workload, and so obviously that's a balancing act because at times guys are going to have to take breathers. That's natural. That's for any human that's playing a physical activity. You're going to have to take a breather, and obviously it coincided with the red zone, and ultimately we didn't convert. And so, play out different patterns sometimes as drives go on, and we'll be more aware of that.
All right, we got to play here.
Let's go more. He bores me.
Yeah, obviously.
Jesus, he bores me. But anyway,
you didn't pick up on what I did there.
What would you say?
Obviously.
Oh yeah. There
He says obviously.
He does say obviously.
More than Sirianni says right.
I like the fact that they had fun discussions on illegal men downfield.
Yeah, it was a fun discussion.
They had popcorn and a clown blowing balloons while they were at it doing fun discussions. Come on, man.
Yeah, these two coordinators didn't give us much, nor should they. I get it. They don't want to get tipped their hand, but I thought maybe he could have been pressed a little more on that decision at the end of the game. Who was it?
Yeah.
Well, because one of the things that hasn't been asked, and somebody wrote this in the YouTube chat, and I think this would have been a fair question. When you're calling that play on 3rd and 3, do you think you have 2 downs to pick up the first or only 1?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you already know that you're not kicking the field, that you are kicking the field goal on 4th? I'm assuming he did, because that does change your play call there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. They should have pressed him a little further on that.
But obviously, I'm telling you, if we do the drinking game, he said obviously, I lost track. More than Sirianni finishes his sentences with right.
Yeah. All right, let's get a couple calls in before we get out of here. Grant in Norristown checking in. What's up, Grant? Thanks for hanging.
How you doing, Mike?
Good.
I think, first of all, I think the Jets are going to win tonight. But second thing is, I think the Eagles are losing to the Saints this week because I think there's a quarterback coach problem going on right now.
You think it's a quarterback coach problem?
Yep, I think it's one or the other has to go.
Well, they're not going anywhere.
Well, didn't they hire Moore in case Sirianni couldn't?
They're not gonna fire Sirianni in the middle of the season.
I know, but
unless they lose like 5 straight.
Yeah, well.
What do you think the coach quarterback problem is? What, you didn't think Jalen Hurts played well last week?
Past couple weeks he hasn't played well.
You didn't think he played well last week?
I don't think he did. No.
Well, look at his numbers. You don't think that was adequate enough to win a game?
He's throwing interceptions though.
Well, he threw one at the end. I mean, but he didn't throw any interceptions during that game. Plus, he almost carried him with the way he ran and threw.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I think one.
By
of
the
them
way,
has
the
to
Jets are a 6-point favorite tonight. You're not exactly going out on a limb that they're going to win.
Yeah.
All right.
6.5. 6.5. Some places.
6.5. Well, yeah. I mean, they should win this game tonight.
They should. But I don't understand the Hurts hate.
Coach quarterback problem.
Well, you're saying Hurts didn't have a good game. I mean, Hurts carried him in that game.
He didn't pay much attention. Caleb in California. Caleb, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. Caleb.
What's going on, Mike?
How are you, buddy?
Awesome. First time, long time out of California. So happy you're back on The Fanatic.
Thanks, buddy.
Want to ask you about this defense. Are we so sure that they are doomed to fail week in and week out? Because we gave them just as much credit. We gave them just as much credit after the Packers game for their performance as much as blame we're giving them after the Falcons.
With their defense?
With our defense, yeah.
Well, we didn't give them that much credit. The Green Bay Packers ran it down their throat. They haven't been able to stop the run in 2 games.
I agree. Yeah, none of our defensive linemen really have got on the stat sheet, but both offenses, Falcons and Packers, have scored in the low 20-point range, minus the first quarter against Green Bay because of our offensive turnovers.
The area that the defense has performed well 2 weeks in a row, and it's really the only area they perform well, is their red zone. They actually sit top 5 in the NFL. So teams have moved the ball up and down, and to your point about the Packers game, they were stout in the red zone in that first quarter. They held them to 2 field goals. So that's really where the defense has kept the score low. But that's a small sample size. There's only been 8 red zone trips.
They looked really active in the first quarter against Green Bay, and then in the middle periods, until they buckled in the end, they weren't that good.
Yeah. I mean, I just think with our offense, we should be able to put at least 25 on the board each night. And if we're holding offenses to low 20s with our bend don't break.
Yeah, but the only problem is the Saints have scored over 40 2 straight weeks. So I don't know. Can they get it together this quickly against a really good team that's offensively cooking? I don't know. We'll see. I haven't really zeroed in on the result yet of this game.
Well, the problem is, and we'll evaluate the Saints-Eagles game more tomorrow, but you're literally going with the top 3 rushing offense, the Saints, against this Eagles rushing defense.
Now, listen, I believe he has to tweak it a little bit. It's beyond. They have to have better technique. I get it; that's important, but he's going to have to do something overtly to get him going defensively against this team, especially. And he did make a good point. If you don't stop the run, you can't get to the quarterback. But their personnel is not getting to the quarterback. It's like, is that scheme or personnel?
Probably a little bit of a combination. See, but this is going to play right into the hands of the Saints because the Saints, they've been running. I was reading an article this morning on ESPN, did a great job talking about the Saints offense. They come out a lot in 12 personnel because they want you to load the box to try to stop the run. You know, Derek Carr. I always get them confused. Derek Carr. Yeah, David was the bust. Derek Carr, 51% of his pass plays are play action. So they establish the run and then they play action the hell out of you. They want you to load the box. So if the Eagles change things up, change up the scheme, start loading the box a little more, run less nickel, too high safety, they're going to run the ball. If you load the box, they're going to play action. It's a tough offense to stop when you have the personnel the Eagles have.
You sound like you're feeling good about this.
I'm not feeling good.
Uh-oh. We might have a Saints pick tomorrow.
I don't know. I haven't
from Billy Boy.
Well, you know, I picked them to lose this game before the season. Yeah. But I also had them 2-0 at this point, so we'll see.
All right, it is time now for closing arguments.
Now, closing arguments on the Mike Missanelli Show. Brought to you by Lowenthal and Abrams Injury Attorneys. Injured in an accident, call 800-876-LAWYER or visit LowenthalAbrams.com.
All right, let me say firmly for the record that Nick Sirianni did not screw up last week when he made that third down call. I thought if Kellen Moore made that call and Nick agreed with the call, I think both of them were forward-thinking, aggressive, offensive coaches who wanted to put that game away. I never have a problem with that. But there's the perception that he screwed up. So what I'm saying is this is a man who currently stands on very thin ice as the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles as far as the belief goes. The fan base doesn't really believe in him. Would that translate to a locker room? Well, I don't know. You can maybe put a dividing wall between the two. And I think it's also unfair that the perception is against Nick Sirianni right now. But it is there. And see, if this gets any deeper, then you're talking about a fan base that doesn't believe in a coach. And at the very drop of a pin, they're going to come hard at him. One loss this season. One loss. They're 1-1. And everybody now from the West Coast to the East is coming hard at Nick Sirianni. It's never good to have a coach who walks on thin ice because people don't believe in a coach who stands on thin ice. So listen, for his sake, if he wants to keep the job, the Eagles are going to have to turn this around really quickly, and they're going to have to probably win this game against New Orleans because if they lose, this carries over to the next game, where the ice gets thinner. Bill?
The ice is thin. The ice is thin. I don't think they're going to make a move in season, though, but we can get there. Hopefully we never get there. But I don't think they have to win this game, but it certainly would go a long way if they did. But we're going to evaluate it all tomorrow. It's not an easy one, Mike. Superdome, not an easy one. You know the last time they played down there in the Superdome? You know what game it was?
No. Nick Foles?
Alshon Jeffrey. Missing that pass, Nick Foles interception.
Yeah, Nick Foles. That's right.
It's the last time they've been to the
Had they won
Superdome.
that game, I was ready to pronounce Nick Foles as the Eagles starting quarterback and get rid of Carson Wentz.
I think the Eagles would have been ready, too.
They probably would have been.
But they haven't played there since then. It's a long time.
All right, Fanatic Deal of the Week. Get 2 adult combo tickets to the Bates Motel for the price of 1 right now. That's right. Prepare for Halloween thrills at the Bates. That's one of the most frightening haunted attractions in the country, and it's located in Glen Mills. So get this exclusive offer while supplies last at 975thefanatic.com/deal. So tomorrow will be a football Friday. We'll have our fearless selections. I'm going to tell you right now, I got a selection in college football that I can't believe.
It's a shoebox game?
I'm telling, I have never seen a 15-point line change in a game from going from an underdog to a favorite. And I'll reveal that tomorrow because that's very telling.
You have not missed on college football since we started this
Of course, we
show.
will handicap the Eagles and the Saints tomorrow. So everybody stay tuned for that. Have a great rest of the day. Sorry for the abbreviated show, but we had good energy for 2 hours, Bill.
We always have good energy.
I got 2 hours left in me.
All right, you want to go have a little round table?
No.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.